right now, I've officially been worse threatened by the Midnight Mormons than John Dehlin ever was. I should call the
Fucking John Dehlin. I love how they totally followed that up, and it was
I've
like,
been
no, look,
threatened
there was
threatened to
no
be punched.
record of you calling the police.
I've been threatened to be punched. Like Brad Whitbeck is threatened my family. Brad Whitbeck's threatened me more than I ever threatened you, John Larsen. Yeah.
I really want to do this Mormon wrestling thing. Have the
that's what I do. I will take the fight. I'll take the fight. I won't try to take Brad's head off or anything like that. We'd probably be head padded up and all that stuff and just see what sort of punches we could do. But I would go full. I'd go full kayfabe. I really would. We'd have to write down a bunch of scripts for it. Man.
Just because it's just worth it to do a wrestling match with an opening and closing prayer.
If it's like 3 months out, I'll go into full competition training mode. I'll go and I'll get looking like a full WWF wrestler, and I'll go into the fight. Like, Brad Whitbeck, I know you're the real wolf. I know you're the one pulling the strings. You seem like a happy little button nose, little elf from that little Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie. But I know you are the real toxic, problematic, patriarchal piece of doo-doo.
It's all the same animal. And I'm not going to tolerate one because some people are more sensitive. So that's the way it is. And when it's time to kick me,
you're so harsh, Larsen. John Harshen
will say, thanks for all the fish.
John Harshen Larsen.
Yeah,
he messed up the quote.
Larsen is preparing to be.
Thanks for all the fish.
No, yeah, it's supposed to be so long and thanks for all the fish.
Oh, I don't
That's
know
the
what
complete
that is.
quote. It's the third book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
So long and thanks for all the fish.
He goes on into declaring victory on declaring Great Salt Lake dead because there's been more stories on that, and it's proof it's dying, it's dead. And then they get into the Amicus Briefs, which I could go into a whole thing about that because he's Amicus. I won't even go into it. It's just too much to go into.
Which case is this? I don't even know what the Amicus.
He's gonna bring up like 20 of them, and I only got into the first two. So the first one was like whatever that John Brown University. And the church weighed in on the subject because they wanted to be able to discriminate. And the other one was about discriminating about hiring people for that gym in Utah in 1980. And both of them had to do with a church's right to discriminate or not get taxed. And so he tries to use it as a hardcore proof that, look, the church is racist and the church is discriminatory because they wrote about these subjects, which were obvious subjects that a church would care about. And I guarantee you the church wasn't the only one thinking about those things. You might get amicus briefs even from the ACLU on such issues where they go and they put in their 2 cents that this could be a larger issue if it's voted on one way or another. It doesn't say anything about the case at hand that I think those guys should be able to discriminate for blacks. It just says a sort of thing that say this, if you guys don't write your answers correctly or set up the law correctly, this could become a thing that alters all religious
it's the classic thing. It's like if you run a Christian bookstore and you don't want to hire an atheist, can he sue you under civil rights? And like traditionally the rule is no. It's a Christian bookstore. You're allowed to have that standard, if it's private, all that crap. And that's the thing, though, is like obviously the left doesn't like the idea of being able to make your own choices about who you associate with. They are against that.
I remember one of the best examples I heard of this in real life was a couple of years back when this dude tried to sue his employer. His employer was a funeral house or a funeral home, and he became transgender, right? He came out as a woman. And
hang on, real quick. Don't die in any funeral house. Die in a funeral home. That's my advertisement for my funeral house. Funeral home.
Funeral home, yeah. Anyway, he came out as transgender. Like in his 50s, and started like transitioning. And he's like, they fired me. I worked there for a long time, and they fired me, and now I need to sue. And everybody's like, yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to sue you. And I'm like, okay, but like, just put the picture in your head for a second. You're grieving. Your husband just died in like a car wreck. It's tragic. He left like 3 kids. His dad's there too. His son just died. Everybody's just mourning, and the fucking dude in a dress walks up to you, and not only are you supposed to hold in, like, keep your composure for the death of your husband, son, whatever, you're also supposed to like pretend that this is like a picture I have to take seriously and affirm your fucking gender the whole time I'm there. Like, if I'm the funeral house, if I'm the funeral home owner, I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna put my like, come on, it's weird.
It's weird and it's a distraction, and we're not saying you can't do it anywhere, but there's a lot of things that you do in your personal life that you don't do at work.
Well, and if you find a funeral home that's willing to let you do that, then be employed by them. But like, I can't blame the business owner for being like, no.
No, and that's things like that is, and because we are talking about this irony right now, it's because like John Larsen has just talked about how like, well, and I just don't associate with the people I don't feel like associating with. Oh, really?
Discrimination. Oh. Everybody discriminates in a certain way, one way or another. That's just how it goes to. But he got into the whole detail about, and he was wrong. He said the original Civil Rights Act protected gender and church, but he thinks the church gives them special privilege to discriminate for the other things. And they go, well, those things are things that if they're doing it in their own little world, you don't get to discriminate against it, or you don't get to tell them that they can't do it as long as they don't go into the public arena. But no, gender is not part of that original Civil Rights Act. They tried to stuff it in later, very, very recently, but no, that specifically says sex.
I remember leaving the church and having like meeting all these people who are like, we need to pull the church's tax exempt status, or at least legally force them to like give women the priesthood, or let gay people marry in the temple, or all of these things. And I was like, why? I don't know. Well, equality. They're assholes for not doing that. It's like, they might be assholes for not doing that, but like none of it's fucking real. Like if there's this group over here that sincerely think they're Jedi, and they say, but nobody with red hair can be a Jedi, I'm like, oh, those are some asshole people who think that they're Jedi and they think they actually have magical powers. But like, I'm not gonna be like, no, you have to allow this is bullshit. You have to let your women be wizards as well. And no, the Jedi isn't real.
Yeah.
You don't have a horse in this race. Why do you care that they don't let women have the priesthood? The priesthood's not real.
That is things like, because
you don't think it's real. You think it's a fake superpower, and you're like, no, you should give women this fake superpower too. Why?
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. That's the thing that always get me, like, I remember asking that question when I was on Mormon Stories with John Dehlin back in the day, and the whole ordained women Kate Kelly thing was going, and I said, talking about Kate Kelly, what does it mean to be a member of a church that you think is this wrong on something this important? And I remember John kind of blew me off, and we kind of moved on. And I think it's because John knew he didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, which is because Kate Kelly is a fraud. It's not just the rabbit hole there.
It's because John Dehlin
Kate Kelly's a fraud, but
this is they know that. That's a thing that you immediately put together, and you're like, oh, this is fake. Why would I care? Like, well, okay, in order to seem sincere, then I have to pretend that I actually believe in this. So Kate Kelly, for the longest time, was like, I want my church
I'm a faithful
to accept
Mormon.
Women. You're not. John Dehlin did the same exact thing. He'll talk about how he was excommunicated as a faithful church-attending Mormon or whatever, every now and then if the argument suits it. But then he goes back into talking about how he put on message boards at Microsoft in like 2003 that like, Joseph Smith was a pedophile. Like, so you
like. I got thrown out of the organization that I think is fundamentally wrong on.
Oh, that was my whole thing with Jeremy Runnels, man. When the CES letter guy, when he got excommunicated, he recorded the meeting, which is interesting because I wanted to see what one of those meetings looked like.
It was interesting.
But then he's like, this is a kangaroo court. You're kicking me. And he's like trying to be a martyr. And I'm like, dude, I thought better of you because you're not a martyr.
I'm kind of all right with that in the sense that I know that I'm sure that he was being gaslighted. And we know he was being gaslighted because we have the recording of him being gaslighted.
I don't.
So
I'll
like
have
I
to watch it
understand
again.
him wanting to do that. Publishing it is a little, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Oh, I don't blame him for recording it. I'm fine with that. That I think it's interesting. But what I'm saying is, like, he then, like, everybody's talking about what a travesty it was that he was excommunicated and how unfair that is. I was like, no, he got kicked out of a club that he didn't want to be a part of. In fact, he wrote the ex-Mormon Bible. This is like, ex-Mormons are now missionaries of the CES letter. And they're like, I can't believe the guy that has probably led more people away from the Mormon church than anyone in the last century got kicked out of the Mormon church. Like,
that's one thing that's funny, because like when I got excommunicated, but I got excommunicated for boring old fornication. And everybody, and everybody was like, aren't you mad? Because everyone's like, they'd say like, I've heard of stories way worse than yours that did get excommunicated. Aren't you mad? Aren't you mad? And I always said, like, mad? No. I agreed to the rules, right? Like, I made a promise. And the promise is, if you break the rules, you do the thing. And I did the thing. And like, I'm disappointed in myself. I'm sad and I'm scared for my soul. But why would I be mad? Like, they didn't hide it from me. It's not like they pulled a fast one on me.
Listen to this one. This was just today. It just kind of goes in line with you guys are saying stuff, and it reminds me of recent crap that I've heard these guys say. So here's one
that I went on earlier about how silly it is to make a religious standpoint about marriage being essential to have children, because like, what is marriage? To have sex. Because it's like saying, okay, the government has to approve of a relationship.
I'm sorry, is Tanner a libertarian now?
Exactly. That's exactly. I was like, what you guys are the ones saying that marriage doesn't matter governmentally?
Somebody needs to tell him that I've heard Ben Shapiro make this same argument.
But that's like the point. Like, I listened to, like, I watched that that Dustin Lance Black video about him going on his whole activist thing after winning the Oscar to go try to get gay marriage legalized and Prop 8 and all that sorts of stuff. And it's a new documentary out on HBO. And it just seemed like the most narcissistic crap I ever watched in my life. And he talked about the parade. I was invited to go to that parade by my gay cousin. And I said, no, I'm not going to that parade because my dad's working in that building. And like, that was kind of like one of the areas where, as an ex-Mormon, is like one of the first areas where I drew the line of saying, like, hey, I support you guys, but I'm not jumping in on this activism. I'm not like you guys. Like, I think you can have gay marriage if that's what you guys want, but I always really did kind of feel like, why do you want to bring the government into this? I've thought that about all marriage. It's like, we should take government out of marriage entirely.
I think you probably should. But like, my thing would be like, as long as it's in straight marriage, like, it might as well be in gay marriage.
Yeah. If that's how they're doing
like,
it.
If we have laws around, like, hey, two people can get married, then we might as well have. Well, and by the way, that's the thing we want to encourage. Like, gay monogamy is probably something we want to encourage, because
then goes down the line.
Polyamory leads to monkeypox.
Well, Jacob Hansen was just making the question on Thoughtful Faith today. He's saying, okay, well then why not the next thing down the line? Why not the next thing down the line? Why not the next thing down the line? And it's just true. Like, where does the slope end? Is it slippery? And it always seems to be slippery.
About this whole conversation is that, I mean, ever since the advent of no-fault divorce, particularly, marriage is a legal document and nothing else. It's about taxes and property.
It's government.
And visitation rights. Nobody takes marriage vows seriously anymore as societally. Like,
it's not the thing it used to be.
Conservatives talk about, but like the whole marriage vows, the to death do us part thing, nobody fucking believes that anymore. Least of all the left.
Yeah, whatever.
But it's real important that gays can get married into that institution that they don't take seriously.
I used to joke before it happened. I would joke and I'd say, yes, I want equal marriage rights for everybody. I want it equally taken away from everybody. Like, take that off my plate.
The bitter sting of divorce. Like,
take that off my plate. Take that off my plate. I don't want to have to. I can say, sorry, chick, it's not a thing anymore. But
what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
23rd Amendment. Marriage is abolished. Oh, really?
Equal rights, baby. Equal rights. You voted for this. Listen to this one. This is a fun little side bit.
I'm saying William Law was in the first presidency. That's what he testified to.
Okay, yeah, I forgot that he was.
This was the girl today that they were
Yeah,
truth bombing.
Got to say real quick though, because one of my things that is one of my pet peeves is this real, especially capitalized. You know, for example, like my communist friend is always his ace in the hole whenever I say something true about history that he wasn't aware of that runs entirely against his narrative. He always says, "You don't know the real history of capitalism."
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what
anybody
Marx
just
was just
like, no, that is your clue that you are talking to an idol, because there's no such thing as real history. There's just history.
That's right. I still got to go back to the other one because I haven't even gotten to where Larsen says, you don't even know what definitions are. And he says one of the definitions nobody knows, maybe 1 in 100,000 people know, is the definition of capitalism.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I got to pull that back up. But let's listen to this real quick.
Okay.
It would be like Down There Jokes saying, I was hanging out with Russell M. Nelson
Yeah.
and I saw him steal a bunch of money and I was there. And now I'm telling you all, it's William Law was in the first presidency.
Yeah. Okay.
We know Joseph was lying about the polygamy.
I forgot he was the source of the.
He's the source of the
Nauvoo
Nauvoo Expositor.
Okay.
So it's
That's
a
a pretty compelling source.
And if you're asking about how people do smooth this over, the thing that apologists like to play sometimes
Gerardo
is
quit and their
just
audio's
look at
fucked up.
No, I think
Small,
that's just
minute
it might just be echoing in Chris's thing.
Okay.
Is it?
It's
No, there's
very,
an
very
echo on her.
tiny.
There's-
There's a tiny bit of delay, I think. But
It's because
Well,
it's
that's
going
all
through my
right,
ear.
everyone
It's because it's going through my earphones.
yeah. So this to me sounds like a really fun idea. Probably, I don't know, traumatizing to the person. I hate using that word now. To like find someone who's willing, because this would have been a thing I would have done when I was very Mormon. You know, oh yeah, hit me with all your stuff. I'll come on your thing, and it would have been interesting. And who knows, maybe I would have been like, oh, the Book of Mormon didn't happen, and then like on air be like, yeah, I guess Mormonism isn't true. But
You're right, John Dehlin. I'm going to vote Democrat from now on.
yeah, but I feel like it's tough to get this right, this thing that they're trying to do here, because it's tough to get like, how do you convince most Mormons to be like, hey, come on our show, watch us tell you terrible, terrible things about your belief system that you had no idea about, and yeah, that's it. That's the only thing we're gonna do. And like, okay, I'll do that. Like, to me, it's probably somebody that's already like on her way out of the church.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
tails,
sure.
but
And then all she does is sit there and go, boy, I don't like that. Boy, I don't like that. That sure isn't cool.
So maybe it's
Understand,
real
like,
then,
right.
because like that's what I did when my friends told me about it. Like, wow, that's bad.
overarching unethical, immoral problems. And so when me and John made that TikTok video, there's a man who works for the church whose name is Dan, and he
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that
our
our boy?
favorite. That is our boy. He did a response to that video, which
Yeah.
He wanted
it's
to really
weird to
harp-
me that me and Kara both really dislike the same person.
Should we start calling him Brother Lysenko?
John, do you remember he really wanted to harp on the idea that it wasn't actually illegal for him to burn down the printing press because of the ways that the laws were set up at that time. But we know that it actually was completely illegal. And
Is Kara
regardless of what, like, small detail somebody wants to
is Kara deconstructing deconstructionism here?
She's
she
deconstructing
constructed-
Dan's apologetics.
Yeah.
She's about to
But-
turn
but-
into a series of digits and letters like the Matrix.
I hate to tell you, Kara, but he has a bunch of degrees on his wall. I don't, unless this is a degree. Is this a degree? I better be careful. That might be a degree. Is that a degree right there? I don't want to speak against the degree. I don't want to speak blasphemy against the degreed.
Yeah, but
Is
one
it
of
a
his
degree or is it the family proclamation of the world? It could be anything.
but the problem is one of his degrees is in not mansplaining, and so
That's what's so funny because like
she automatically gets she's ahead of him.
he keeps having things where he keeps coming out trying to get Jordan Peterson because Jordan Peterson goes outside of his lane.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff
love
with
that.
his lane. But he obviously right here gets called out by these guys of saying, are you a lawyer, Dan? Are you trained in the law of that stuff? You're outside of your lane, Dan Maclellan. An academic going outside of their lane, Dan Maclellan.
I think everyone knows deep down.
I actually hate that.
So
If
what about
Dan
those
Mc-
of us?
Dan
what about-
McClellan, I think he'd be fine for you to go outside of your lane and talk about stuff like humans do.
What
I think
about,
that
like-
whole stay in your lane stuff about as soon as somebody's an academic, they're not allowed to talk outside of their lane ever. Fuck off.
Yeah,
I
what
think
makes
you
you?
said, like
What makes
humans
something?
do. We constantly have to remind people of how humanity works.
What makes something your lane? Does it become your lane once you have a degree in it? Because
It's so dumb.
What about
It's so
those of
dumb.
us who just don't have a college degree in?
You're not allowed to. You're not even allowed on the freeway. You're not.
You
on
know,
the
I don't
freeway.
like. I don't have. I don't have a college degree in anything. So like, I can't talk about anything.
Everything we've ever said has been invalid.
Like
That's,
anytime John Larsen talks about capitalism, we're like, "What? Do you have a degree in economics?" Like,
John
you
Larsen
know-
has a degree in linguistics, just like Dan McClellan, which makes you remember Dan McClellan, linguist here, so he's able to break down
Linguist
because
here.
language is all that
So-
matters.
Arguing with my little sister about politics and feminism in particular, because I don't have a degree. She does, but also she knows me. And one of the last things she said to me was like, "You need to live in more cities." And I'm like, what does that have to do with what I'm telling you? Like, you sent me this link. You told me that I'm outright, that I listen to Nazis, and I'm challenging you on this. And your response is, I need to live in more cities. And like, that's really where, I mean, that's where it came down to. Like, and that's part of their viewpoint. Like, because I mean, obviously for her, she was out of empirical ideas. But that whole viewpoint epistemology, like, oh, well, no, you just haven't lived in enough cities. That's why you don't have a proper social consciousness, and that's why you don't think feminism is a good thing.
There's always something that could happen to you that like could make you see things correctly. That's sort of the idea. Is like, if only you had studied as much as I have. Is only if you had experienced what I experience or empathized the way that I empathize, then you would be of my opinion. I mean, the right opinion.
Or if you lived in enough of and the right cities. Whatever
I'll drop a truth bomb on all that. That, you know how like atheists used to flex on people about reading the scriptures and that sort of stuff, like read the Bible all the way through and then you'll see that I'm not talking crazy stuff. You didn't actually read it. Well, I do think everyone should go get a humanities degree at the humanities schools right now to learn and be finally demystified of anybody there not being full of shit and not knowing anything and not being stupid, and listen to all the stupid questions that come in classes, listen to all this, read their stupid papers, go through all that sorts of stuff, and go learn from firsthand experience how much they don't know what they're talking about anything.
Chris, I really, really don't want to do that.
It's the only way to learn, man. You gotta
learn the real history.
So there's all sorts of stuff. I've said it before. Like, you read through all that stuff, and all it served you was to officially know, because you could officially say that you officially wasted your time, to officially be able to say that it was a waste of time. Like, I officially wasted the time, so I am now allowed to say that this is a waste of time. Well, although I knew that before I officially wasted the time.
Well, no, it's similar to that thing that Thomas Sowell said. One of my favorite things he ever said is that the single greatest privilege earned by, or that you have by earning a degree from Harvard, is never having to be impressed by somebody who got their degree from Harvard.
Thomas Sowell said the thing
that's
is
like
better.
That's where Chris Hanna is with all this woke shit, where it's like, no, he's got as much or more than you in this shit, you know.
I don't know, we kind of got that third hand from knowing Jackson Washburn.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'm blocked from him. I'm blocked because I made it. No, don't you remember? It was, oh my God.
We had a whole bunch of fights, but I don't think I'm blocked from him, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm blocked. No, I'm blocked because
I'm blocked from Dan McClellan.
Oh, yeah, we're all blocked from Dan.
I'm blocked from Don McClellan, but yeah, Jackson Washburn blocked me. It was the stupidest thing ever.
You lasted longer
I made
than
a
us
joke about cancer. I made a joke about cancer, and he's like, "That's not cool. My dad died of cancer 3 months ago."
Yeah,
and like I just fired back at him. I'm like, "Oh, fucking!" I said, "Clutch your pearls." That's right. I said, "Clutch your pearls." Like, really, you're gonna shut down this conversation on the basis of my dad died of cancer?
It's all the old
when people
tools,
claim
man.
When people claim that any part of their or your identity precludes you from taking part in the debate, all I do is just lie about my identity.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I tell
Yeah.
people that I've told so many people that I have a uterus, right? Like if they say you can't have an opinion on abortion legislation because you don't have a uterus. I'll say, well, I do, and then there's nothing they can say because what are they going to do? Like they can look at my picture, right, and they can be like, this guy, like in this profile picture, he has a beard and he's holding his children next to his wife. And so I know, but my ideology keeps me from knowing what I actually know. It convinces me to disbelieve my lying eyes. So, like, I can't call his bluff. I can't say that he doesn't have a uterus. So what they end up saying is like, well, then mind your own uterus. Okay, then you didn't mean that in the first place.
No. You break their world, and they end up at the foundation of libertarianism, of individualistic libertarianism.
Yeah, they always move towards that when they start arguing. It's so funny.
Yeah, suddenly it all becomes about like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
You want to be left alone, huh? You want that now? I'll give it to you. I swear to God.
There's a lot of times I'm listening to Larsen where I'm like, okay, Larsen, I'm starting to go with you here. I'm starting to go with you. Yeah, these politicians are all schmucks. Yeah, these corporations are all pretty stupid. I'm starting to go with you. And then he dives into, and what we need is triple regulation and triple it and triple it down, and every single time.
Down that's
How can he say it wasn't illegal if the governor was straight up?
Exactly.
Yeah, because Joseph Smith was
Dan Maclellan's wrong as hell here. I mean,
I haven't watched it in a while, so I don't remember.
Well, he just tries to say that because Joseph Smith was the mayor, it was legal because he was the mayor.
It was legal for him to say burn down private property.
Yeah, and stop the printing press, like freedom of the press.
Is one of his degrees in law and American history?
When did he do it, and when did the First Amendment get put in?
See, I don't even know because it was a part of the problem is that it's a territory, right? And so that like creates this whole other fuzziness.
Yeah,
I think
and he was the mayor, and where he was or something is like his argument. It's like wasn't like officially.
That's why Alfred Packer's cannibalism conviction was overturned, because he was tried in a federal court for a crime that was committed when Colorado was a territory, so he got let out on that.
But they said that they tried to look into it, and there was a Governor Ford at the time, and that governor trumped the mayor or something like that. But I actually,
at what point in time, at what point in American history could the mayor say, "Hey, destroy private property"?
Yeah, I actually think Kara and Dehlin are right on this one.
Are you talking about the mayor of Minneapolis? 2020. The answer to your question is 2020, Jared.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
He gets to decide what's legal in his town anyway, basically.
Yeah, generally the state trumps the city, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what's legal.
Is Dan a lawyer?
No, he's like a linguist or an ancient.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Dad just got accidentally owned by the ultimate midwit, John Dehlin. Took his credentialism and turned it around on him. Like, what's your degree in? Dan just
and we respect Dan Maclellan. He's
there. He had to say this though.
And we respect Dan Maclellan.
Governor Ford. Sorry. In this case, I think Governor Ford trumps Joseph Smith as mayor in terms of knowing, or Dan Maclellan, frankly, in terms of knowing what's legal and what's illegal in Illinois.
Dude, everyone trumps Dan McClellan.
Regardless of what like small details.
I want to see him. He only has to say he respects Dan McClellan because he's progressive. That's the only reason. If Dan McClellan wasn't progressive, he would not respect him.
It'd be problematic because Dan McClellan is somehow like a pro-abortion Mormon.
Yeah,
I think everyone knows.
He's just pro everything Democrat Party, which is by John Dehlin. We've talked about a lot lately. A lot of this other stuff. His a priori, his presupposition on anybody is if they're a Democrat, they're good. That's his morality. He says it in so many words, many times.
How can he say it wasn't illegal if the governor was strict?
If they're progressive, progressive is good. Progressive is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because just
see, he just agreed.
Smith was mayor, and he gets to decide what's legal in his town anyway, basically.
Yeah, generally the state trumps the city, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what's legal.
Is Dan a lawyer?
No, he's like a linguist or an ancient scripture kind of guy.
Okay.
And we respect Dan McClellan. He's brilliant. He knows.
Man, there's too many dumb things a week.
There really is.
Let me see if I can get back to Larsen talking about the way he would debate, because he's so sure that no conservatives ever come across his.
But we already did Larsen, right? And we already caught the dumb shit that he was saying. So what are the odds that right now he's still saying dumb shit?
Yeah, he was going off in all those Amicus briefs that he supposedly studied, and he already said the dumb stuff, that it's dumb that the Mormons, that the
I'm
church's
kidding.
legal department.
The odds are very
100
high that he's still saying dumb shit. I was kidding.
But he had. Does this have a transcript already? Why does it? Have you noticed? I think they do something like they make sure that there's no transcript on Larsen episodes.
Doesn't the computer do it?
Why do you think that is? No, they have to like purposely make sure that it doesn't transcript those episodes. Let me hold on.
They're probably fans of ours, and we've done so much John Larsen that they're like, Chris always uses the transcript, so fuck it. It's probably because of us. The universe definitely centers around me, so.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to find him.
What you drink tonight, Flip?
Some rums. The first one was a Jamaican pot still rum, and then this is a Guyana Demerara aged rum.
I
think it makes me sad. My favorite drinks right now are rums, but they're special orders that I got off of bar owners, and so you can't really buy them in Utah unless a bar owner buys one and lets you buy one off of them.
We tried bamboo rum the other day.
I want to try. People apparently that's a big rage. It's a Panamanian rum, right? Bimbu or bamboo.
Yeah,
like
it's like with bananas and shit like that. A bartender was like, "You want to try it?" And we're like, "Sure, why not?" And then I actually went and bought a bottle after that. It's very sweet.
Is it? It's flavored though, right? It's not just straight rum.
Yeah, it's definitely flavored.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, like
I like it all right. I do it like if you do rum and cokes, it's good, but I generally don't love. In order to flavor liquor, you have to put so much syrup in it that it's just disgusting.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like I don't do anything flavored anymore, really. What I'm interested in is what can a distiller do, you know?
Yeah, I remember I took a small drink at a friend's house years ago of, I think it was wild turkey American honey or something like that.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that tastes really good for one swig. And my wife was like, oh, awesome. Jared likes that. So she actually went and surprised me and bought me like a huge bottle of it. And I tried drinking it and I was like, oh my God, this is too much. This is disgusting.
You can like thin it out with some soda water and stuff maybe, but yeah, no, I don't know. Like I said, there's what I call ethanol delivery systems.
Yeah.
And that's what flavored whiskey is. It's ethanol delivery system. You know, whereas like Jamaican rum has those crazy funky flavors. And it's just magical because, you know, how do you get that from fermented molasses and water? And the answer is gross. And it's called the muck pit. But
the muck
no, like literally this is a weird thing, and God only knows how Jamaican distillers came upon this. But on the plantation of the sugarcane plantation, right? Because, you know, a rum distillery was just a way to deal with the byproducts of manufacturing sugar, specifically the molasses, right? And then they could develop this thing called the muck pit, which would be like a grave-sized hole dug in the ground that you would either cover with a piece of wood or with straw, and you would fill that with dunder, which is the leftovers of a still run, like you make your wash, which is your alcoholic liquid. You put that in the still, you distill that, you get the alcohol out of it. What's left is called dunder, and that's like this highly acidic soup of dead yeast and all this crap. You fill the muck pit with this, you feed it cane trash, which is like the leftover biomatter of crushing cane, and by controlling the pH, it becomes a soup of like bacterial activity. And I've never seen one. I've only read about them, but they are described as something out of a nightmare. That it smells like vomit, like it smells particularly of vomit and other disgusting things. And the whole thing is that it creates this bolus of mucilaginous bolus of bacteria, but critically carboxylic acids. And this is all over my head. But apparently you put a blob of this snot into the still, and that creates a carboxylic acid soup. And like butyric acid, literally the smell of vomit is what this acid is. But in the vapor column of the still, ethanol and carboxylic acids combine, and they make artificial flavors effectively. So like if you've ever wondered like why those rums sometimes taste like juicy fruit gum, they taste like like artificial banana. They taste like artificial pineapple. That's the trick. That's what's going on.
And the bacteria and cum pits.
All right. Exactly. No, and there's a there it is. There's a moonshiner shortcut, like in American moonshining. If you want to make a Jamaican style rum, but you don't have a muck pit, you throw Swiss cheese into your ferment. Stinky cheese, right? That smell of bad cheese, that's butyric acid. So you really just throw stinky cheese into the ferment, and that helps you duplicate. When you run the still, it gives you a banana flavor. It's the weirdest freaking thing.
How do you retain information? You just retain information more quickly than most people.
He's flipipedia, man.
No, like my whole life, people have called me smart, and I've never felt smart. But what I have is pathological curiosity and a memory for things. But that's really it.
Yeah, there's no degrees, man.
No, there ain't no degrees.
You're definitely not smart, because if you were smart, you'd have credentials.
Yeah, no, the way I say, like, no, smart people are happy and have fulfilled lives with lots of relationships.
Dude, I don't know.
That's what smart people are to me. Like, that's what I've always thought of.
Is that what you think?
Smart.
I don't know. Van Gogh
different kinds of smart. There's different types of smart. Yeah. I've been to college. I went to the University of Utah, and I got up to the tops, and I've met two really, really, really smart people. One was Professor Joel Hancock from the University of Utah. Was retiring when I was there, because he was a guy really trained in the classics and really knew all the old stuff and was amazing. And the other one was Flip Johnson, who wasn't at the University of Utah. I didn't meet anybody else up there that ever impressed me. Joel Hancock blew my brain away, but then like everybody else was like, you really saw the generation. I got to see a generation that was retiring that had been trained in the classics, and the next generation down was all postmodernists who the only thing they knew about the classics is that one is racist on this page. That's all they knew about it. And I'm not kidding. Yeah.
This is racist, and also Jane Austen was a fourth wave feminist.
Yeah, that's all they would know, like how to say the woke thing about the thing. Kant said this one racist thing about black people one time. But what else did Kant say?
That's exactly where
I don't know.
And that is why you get that thing where there was that whole kerfuffle because they were considering casting an Israeli woman as Cleopatra, right? and the degreed people of journalism all wigged out and said how racist, Cleopatra should be played by an Arab. That's because education has turned into exactly what Chris talked about just now. People used to get a classical education. They used to learn things about the world, and they don't anymore. Cleopatra was an Arab. That's how stupid they are.
Stephen Hicks called it like a generation of the postmodern movement, and he talked about those original guys. Even the original ones were really well read, the original writers, but the same professors of that same generation, maybe less famous, were as well read. And then the next generation a little less, and then this current generation is all they really know is how to regurgitate woke crap. That's really all they think that they're smart for it. And it's kind of funny because
James Lindsay has been really grinding on about, but it's becoming more and more clear where it's like, how is this happening? Because like, how is it that these people don't seem to know anything and yet are changing everything?
Well, they have that whole thing about decolonizing the curriculum. So what they have to do, and I had to do this too, I had to read a bunch of books from the Romantic period that were written by people of color. Do you want to know what that means?
Oh God.
It means I had to stack up on some very low tier bad writing. That's what it meant. Because they weren't the classics. They weren't like the big canon best stuff. But the reason they go through this entire college and get all the way to the end of it and all they've read is kind of some random crap is because they're going around just digging up weird esoteric books that were
really
never good, and they spend hours and hours and hours and months reading those books, and none of them are important or good or like things that advance.
Yeah, dude, you're not really.
If these people take over,
advance the form at all.
If these people take over in 100 years, there will be teaching classes about rock and roll and Liverpool, and they will dig up some half Indian skiffle player, and they will tell the story of rock and roll through that person, and there'll be one bad recording of them, and the Beatles will be their racist colonizers. No, right?
They stole the
Shakespeare's
music.
out, Beatles out, and that's I think what Chris just described a little bit. It's like you could have been reading the greats, you could have been reading the things that shaped civilization, and you could read them and the people of color, the marginalized views. You can have both. It's not possible to have both.
They don't want you to.
one of the reasons it's not even like the great canon of the Western culture. It's one of the reasons why James Lindsay knows more about their own stuff, because they don't even read like the grand theme of their own stuff. Does that make sense? Like they read very, very, very esoteric books and don't even get, except for weird kind of one-off stuff that's included in the papers that they read, but they very rarely read the primary, like Kimberly Crenshaw. They very rarely read the primary Foucault. They get pieces of that when they're reading their other stuff. I'll show you this. Like this is one of the books that I had to write a paper on, and I had to read tons of books like this book. Sob, novel from 1841 about a mulatto slave, right? It was esoteric. Like think of all the novels and the books and the video games and all the stuff that's written today. So it's like in this time frame, there was people writing a lot of books. So somebody had to dig really, really far. And the only reason this book was dug up at all was because it had a racial bent to it, right? And it's a bad book. Yeah. Like it just sucks. It's not good. It's just boring. It's just like, it's just kind of bleh. And I had to read it and write a whole entire paper on it, and I had to read a ton of books like this. And we read this instead of Quixote. Does that make sense?
I just started reading Quixote today.
And they skipped Quixote. People go through and get entire Spanish degrees, and they don't read the first novel in history that is in the Spanish language that not only set the form of novels, but it's an incredible book. Like you will get a million references in the world by knowing about like chasing windmills and all that sorts of stuff. You read 50 books like this and have to write 50 papers on books like this. And you don't even read Crenshaw, so you don't even really know why you're reading books like this. You just keep getting inundated. I saw Lindsay Hansen Park put up a list of 100 books that she was having to get through to show that she was doing this, and it was like 100 books just like this book. I'm like, that'll take you 3 years. You will not be smarter about literature. You'll just know more that you've read some representation. You won't have learned anything about something that's going to be teaching you better form or ideas or concepts, and you'll get to the end of it and you won't even know much of anything.
It's funny. I just started Don Quixote today, right? And I've been trying to read through all these classics. Read like a bunch of Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, and then Don Quixote was next on my list. And so I started it today, got like 3 or 4 chapters in. I read the introduction, and in the introduction, the guy's explaining like, look, there's some things you won't get, right? There's in Don Quixote's age, or in Cervantes' age, they had to laugh about everything, and they could laugh about everything. And so modern,
you have to learn a lot.
Maybe you won't get it. But no, the crazy thing was, I need to find out when he wrote that that introduction, because now I feel like I get it. Like
it makes a lot more sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's just
this guy's chase. Like, why is he
back around to the point where like we are now a people that the shit that was funny and crazy in the 1600s makes sense to us, because like I love those Dostoevsky books. I love those Tolstoy books. This book is easier to get into. This is like, it's funny already, and I'm only like,
you're hitting on something, because part of what that book is about, and a lot of the books from that era, is the decline of the empire. And it's one of the reasons why we know that it's kind of the same thing. This guy's going around imagining that he's got to be like Sir George in retirement, which is the guy who used to fight dragons, but now he's got to find something to pretend there's a dragon, because there's no such thing as knights anymore.
Well, isn't it? I haven't read it. I haven't read it in any language. But isn't there also the whole thing where, like, the language is like pseudo aristocratic?
Yeah, it's harkening back
in vulgarisms.
Yeah, it's harkening back to a time where he's a fake caballero. He's a fake knight. He's a fake gentleman.
He meets some random innkeeper.
The cultural impact of that book, though, is like, because They Might Be Giants is one of my all-time favorite bands. And what does that mean? They might be giants. That's directly from Quixote.
Well, chasing windmills, the entirety of the entirety of the whole Trump administration, and I think it even plays in it, because I think they tie in a whole lot with Moby Dick like a whole lot. Like you're gonna go chase down this thing that you don't even know what you're chasing, but like you're attacking windmills. But there's a lot in that book too. Like I think the whole second chapter is about a book burning in a library destruction and all that sorts of stuff. Like it really is about the decline of empire in the middle of it and what's happening to an old man who just doesn't even know what he's doing anymore.
What I'm saying is I think that humor has somehow circled back. It makes me, and I'm pretty early on in the book to make that call, but it makes me want to research that time period to figure out what the fuck was going on, to see if they had some insane shit like what we've got going on now. Because like it felt like I'm reading an episode of Arrested Development. Because like he goes,
it's totally that.
And he's like he like walks to this inn and he's like, fuck, but I haven't been knighted yet. Okay, so what I can do is just meet the first person willing and he can knight me because somehow he has that authority. Nobody can touch my armor. So he like beats the shit out of a couple stable hands who get near his armor, like damn near kills him. And then the innkeeper is like, okay, I'll do this knighting ceremony just to get you like go away.
Yeah,
you're
it's
a knight
totally like
now.
a satire. It's
amazing.
completely a satire. And it is the show Arrested Development is exactly that. It's a decline of a family, decline of an empire, decline of an aristocratic family. It's exactly what it is. But like,
you know what else? Venture Brothers. That is a major theme of Venture Brothers.
Yeah, it's in a lot of stuff. A lot of those old classics, if you read them, just like the Bible, like they say, like, oh, you could just get rid of the Bible. Even Christopher Hitchens recognized and said, if you don't understand the Bible, you're not going to understand even partial parts of most of the best literature in history. You won't understand Shakespeare if you don't know what the Bible is, but the
Decline of Empire also, sorry, because they're all coming to my head. P.G. Woodhouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
He was a comic writer, but that was the decline of British power is a major theme in P.G. Woodhouse.
Yeah, but so look at this. Like this book is the only feminist abolitionist novel published by a woman in the 19th century in Spain. So shouldn't this just be like the bestest, most famousest book ever that everybody knows
about? Is it any damn good?
How come the Wikipedia is only this long about it? It's because it's
mediocre work of fiction.
It's not any good. It's just not good. It's not good readings, man. It's just blah.
Did you watch that Lotus Eaters they did where it was like just today, I think it was Callum just looked up tricks on getting in, like I think he just put into YouTube tricks on getting into university with a low SAT score.
Oh, from that girl. There was a lady.
Yeah, it wasn't just her. It was a lot of people, and she had like it was diversity written on her fucking shirt.
This is what is really happening, and you can see here. This is someone saying it feels good to be a gangster with a series of images of just if you just check up people who are doing pretty well in our non-inherent society. We have a YouTuber known by Law School Blueprint
flaunting her ignorance.
She posted a video here.
Quite literally.
Getting accepted into law school with a low LSAT and GPA full tuition scholarship. Just some advice about how to do it. There's another lady of a completely different background who comes in here and says that, well, she got C in chemistry, got put out of honours program on a technicality, barely did any research. This is her writing this. Didn't shadow. Grade point average was good, but could have been better. Professors wouldn't give me the time of day. Mediocre MCAT. Applied the very last day. Told I wouldn't even get into med school, and then currently an MS3. She's studying to be a practice of medicine person.
Hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Hearts and minds, they've won me over.
But when it comes back to the law school stuff is even funnier. Because if you just look on YouTube, getting accepted into law school with a low LSAT, if you go back, please, then we can actually say it, which is that there's a lot of YouTube videos that come up telling you about how to get in school if you have low grades. However, this individual insisting that she didn't get a diversity scholarship does actually tell us what happened, because you just watch a video and she says this in the middle of it. Let's play.
So for those who will be applying with a low GPA and a low LSAT like myself, you need to put your all into your personal and diversity statement. You have to make the committee want you.
Cool. Thanks for saying it out loud.
Unless she's saying put effort into something.
Yeah, put it into the diversity statement, part of your application, because the rest of it didn't go so well.
A bunch of
she's talking, lady. And I thought about no, this was a black lady that I'm thinking.
No, the lady who wrote this novel, Sob, this Gertrudis.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, they were aristocrats. Nobody's
She's an
writing
aristocrat.
novels.
She was rich enough to have somebody paint a portrait of her.
Yeah,
That's
she was
how
rich enough to sit
marginalized
around.
she was.
And the thing is, like, it's long and boring and dull and all sorts of stuff. But what Jared was saying is true. There's a bunch of people who got into law school bragging about how they got into law school with they got bad grades and they still got accepted in. And they're like, here's the tricks on how to do it. And the answer is those tricks would not work for us three. We would not get in.
She just straight up said, play up on your minority status. And the funny part was, I was like, what's the logical conclusion of this? Where does this end up? Because if you've got people
there was one
like getting in based on minority status, what ends up happening is that people like me, like I start going to doctors, and at that point, if this gets to the point where they're letting in, more and more and more diversity, I would be like, if you look like a minority to me, I'm not going to go to you as a doctor because I have no way of knowing if like you're a surgeon that was a diversity hire. If you were like very competent, you very well could be. I'm going to go to Asian doctors. That's what I'm going to do. All of my doctors are going to be Asian, not even white, just because they have that's the top of the top of the top.
They had to be hybrid because even if they were super, super, super good, they didn't get in because they got
So there's like Doodles Doomis right now because the Utah Symphony announced an amateur symphony writing contest.
Yeah. And he's good enough that he would he should be considered for absolute.
But he went through the whole application process and they say straight up,
diversity.
We're looking for marginalized people. Now here's the thing: is he's got one eye and he could use ableism. Play that game. But
he doesn't want to.
He cares more about art and music because he's like, no, if I get picked, I want it because my music sounds good, right? Just because that's and like from James's perspective, it's like, first off, he was born with a genetic condition that makes his eyes weird, and then he exacerbated it by getting drunk and falling around a lot. You can cut that out. I love Doodles, but it's got nothing to do with his musical sensibility. Nothing. Yeah. Nothing. But the Utah Symphony is saying the most important thing about your music is your identity, your marginalized status, and how you fit into this. And it's so gross. It's so gross because you think like classical music. Is there like anything more purely artistic than classical music? Because there's no fucking money in it. There's not chicks. They've taken even classical music from us. It's so disgusting.
From the early 1900s, we all got Scott Joplin. It's one of those areas that if people were good enough, that
Louis Moreau Gottschalk, fucking Gottschalk, the middle of the 20th century was a mulatto. He is the granddaddy of rock and roll.
I'm saying it's one of the things Kenny Zhu has been on about, and he wrote a whole book about it because he's one of those Asians who's getting discriminated out of Harvard. But they go through history and they show how actually going by merit really did help people crack through. Like that really is the way for people to crack through in diversity. It's not by faking stuff.
This should be the best
Gottschalk was a mulatto in the middle of the 90s. Gottschalk was born in New Orleans in 1850? Let me find out. And he became famous because his music is amazing.
This should be like one of the best arguments in favor of colorblindness.
Yeah.
Like I realized that when I was like reading D'Angelo, she kept shitting on colorblindness constantly. And I was like, okay, this, like, I get it. You don't like colorblindness. It's always some clumsy boomer who's like, oh, I don't even see color. Like literally, I don't see, you're making fun of it, but whatever. Let's think about individual. But the more I read it, the more I was like, wait a minute, this feels like a beautiful idea. The more I think about it, this is a thing I almost hold like sacred, is the idea.
It is sacred. It's the only way it can work. It's the only way it can work, or we
like,
can't.
So not only are you,
we will get tribal. We will get tribal.
Gottschalk was born in Louisiana in 1829. He was born he was born and raised in the very depths of antebellum Southernism, and his grandparents were Dominican Creoles. Yeah, this just grinds my gears because it's that whole world started yesterday thing. We're like, we need to hear from marginalized communities. Like, you motherfucking piece of shit. My dad played Gottschalk so loud every time he took a bath that I have like trauma from my dad blasting Gottschalk. But my entire life, I knew about the man. And then I grew up and found out, like, those things, like, I grew up today, I go around today, and kids with college degrees tell me that people with mulatto Creole backgrounds in antebellum Southern America didn't have opportunities. And I'm like, no, my dad blasted the music of a famous one so loud that it traumatized my childhood, you know? Like, and yeah, just that. The world started yesterday. Like, God damn you fuckers. So, you know, that's the other thing. Like, and Gottschalk, like, when I took a history of rock and roll class at the college, Louis Moreau Gottschalk was the first fucking name mentioned. Yeah. No, you should look him up. He's great. My dad's a nut, and my dad loves old American music, especially that led into jazz. That's why my dad is into Gottschalk. Because Gottschalk is the bridge between Beethoven and Joplin.
So this woman right here, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, she was a very famous poet, 1651, Mexican, actually, well, she's probably had a lot of Spaniard in her, but I think she was a little bit mestizo, but she deserved to be in the canon and was there in the canon rightfully because she had great poetry. The reason she had time to do it is because she was a nun and she did really good stuff. And so there was already representation. So like we only had to go to Saab because we just had to have more or something like that. But it's like you could have just left it. You know, there were some other women. There's Isabel Allende and a bunch of different women represented in that world because their stuff was good enough. And you water it down by trying to do the other stuff, and the representation's already there with merit. It's already there.
It has always been there. It's so hard to repress.
Yeah.
Like even the most tyrannical tyranny of tyrannies cannot repress good ideas.
Talent.
Talent. No, exactly. Like so perfect example of this. North Korea is one of the most famously repressive states in the world, but South Korean soap operas have flooded North Korea and they can't stop it. People are willing to risk a lifetime of imprisonment to watch TV.
Jesus.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
All right, you ready for this? This is we predicted this forever ago, and we're just now getting to it.
I enjoy interacting with the other side, or people
no, you don't.
Lies.
Lies.
I believe he does enjoy it if he's come across somebody that he can trample easily.
Yeah.
But,
I'm sure you like talking to the dumb
you're
ones
probably
who
gonna
aren't prepared to talk to you.
Yeah.
Be peppered with, and you can look at the comments and see like these questions from me as I try to understand. And you know, probably one of my biggest frustrations, and I think it will lead into something we're going to talk about today, is just this lack of understanding of basic terminology. I doubt
he thinks it's such a dagger. He thinks it's why I know he hasn't come out of his bubble at all to hear anybody's criticism at all for him, because he thinks that like the way he's like, I can even signal it at the center field, like Babe Ruth pointing at the center of the fence, or Casey at the bat. You know, like, oh, I can even say that I can just do that. I'm gonna come at them in their definitions, man. Like,
1 in 10,000 Americans could define what socialism is. I doubt 1 in 100,000 Americans could define what capitalism is. And so
is he going to define it for us?
Yeah,
he gets into it later, but when he goes into the Amicus Brief. But.
It's hard to have these discussions when people have terms that they don't understand, and then they plant a big fence around them. You know,
what a sneaky.
Do you think he has?
What a dirty, rotten trick that is. No,
do you think he has an esoteric description of capitalism? Like, what do you think is the description?
Absolutely. No, that's it.
No,
John's
he
does
a little bit, but it's
power.
Not. It's
really not. I bet he uses the word power in his definition.
What he's saying is that people are only being serious, honest, and correct if they are using my definitions.
Yeah. So the only bit of esotericness to his capitalism description is that he thinks that like any sort of corporation or business has to be serving the capital for it to actually be capitalism. So so if you're not like serving the capitalists who've put money forth to get return on money, it's not capitalism. Did you lose me? So he's like saying, so basically a 501c3 that's a nonprofit or whatever, even if they are going and earning money in a capitalistic way, it's not really capitalism because there's not capital that it's serving.
Oh my god! So that just kind of immediately sets it up as nothing good can be capitalism.
I've seen this stuff from different
defined-
Marxist types, and he gets mad that people call him Marxist types, even though he's using like Marxist descriptions of it there, because Marxists get real specific about what's bad about capitalism. But if that's everything that's bad about capitalism, you guys can't be mad at the world economy, because then the world economy isn't just capitalism by any sorts of means. But they'll try to say stuff like capitalism must have a product and produce a product and infinitely produce more of that product. So like even if it's just like ideas, like if you're getting paid for ideas, that's not technically capitalism, because there's not a resource that you're expounding upon. It's too in the air, it's too esoteric to be real capitalism. So
yeah, but they're taking all of the things that they might consider good that are happening within a capitalistic system and just saying that, well, that doesn't count as capitalism because
that's
it's
not technically capitalism. So I can still be mad at the capitalism that just takes more and more oil. I kind of just want it to just be that I'm talking about.
No,
more and more oil and more trees. Because
guys, it's simple. Sometimes capitalism is speaking as a prophet, and sometimes get your head around it.
So
obviously,
yeah. Okay. Well, so that's kind of one way to start the show. John, did you have other announcements before we dive into today's topic?
I do. We always want to follow up. If I've said anything wrong, or if there's information from previous shows.
How many times have we shown clips like this now?
I like to.
We're here. Hi.
Others posted for us on Mormon Stories, and it got traction. And
We're you guys
revealed. You revealed on here that you guys did not hear a peep of it.
Yeah,
not a peep.
We are here to prove that you are lying right now.
I guess the problem is we're all a bunch of racist QAnon. Probably
that's what he would say.
Deniers, probably like you can't engage with these people because you're legitimately racism on your platform.
I just had it today on NPR where I made a snarky comment about democratic hypocrisy, whatever. I think it was something about how they're so pro-war, and somebody immediately comes and goes like, "Another Trumper," blah blah blah, and I'm like, "No, I don't support Trump." He's like, "Haha, got you. You all say that." Okay.
You really, you like Ted Bundy's murders? No, fuck that guy. That sounds.
That's what they all say. It's become so stupidly tropey, but like I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into this serious argument of where somebody's saying to me, "I know that you are a Trumper because you keep insisting that you're not." And that's literally where they're at.
That's a Kafka trap. You got a Lula clip for us? Is that what you're doing?
Oh. No, I've got a whole little. This I was gonna put this at the front of the whole video, but it got just a little too long. It's highlights and stuff. But I'll play it for you guys. Stop it if you hear anything. But it's just kind of like a fast. Yeah.
I'll admit that, like I'm not plugged in enough to Brazilian politics.
This is a guy talking about Rothbard.
But but I'm just saying because listen to that clip you showed us the other day. Bolsonaro is a funny dude.
He's hilarious.
He's funny dude. He might be the biggest turd in the world. I don't know.
We'll just call you a pussy in the middle of a debate.
Brazil. Yeah, there's some things about Brazil. Like, yeah.
This whole 11 minutes was going to be like, how I usually front load the videos that I make. I was going to put this at the beginning, but I was like, I figured I'll just play it for you guys because you might want to comment on something, because a lot of it's pulling clips from 3 or 4 different recent Dehlin episodes that were all in the past 2 weeks. I made this. Oh. Yeah, the very first guys here just.
You're getting good at this. I want to learn from you.
I'm good at being bullshit at it, but I can show you how I bullshit it.
Well, that's all I've ever done at anything is bullshit. So.
Hey, you there.
I know he sounds like Ezra Klein. But...
the Bible. Me? Yeah, you. Are you tired of all that God stuff? Do you want Christianity to be easier, more exciting, and less demanding on your free time? Boy, do I. Then why don't you throw out that old lame Christianity classic and try the very new Christianity Light?
Whoa! Wow! This is totes bussin', yo!
Christianity Light uses all the same terms as Christianity Classic, but without all that unwanted salvation from your sins and wrath of God stuff.
Oh, I don't like that. And it just kind of starts escalating, start getting politics involved. I do not represent the views of the podcast, but why are people loving Trump?
Millions of so-called Christians voted for Trump, even though he's not a perfect man. Unlike all the other politicians, despicable.
Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, I have voted Republican, you know, I voted Democrat.
It used
and
to be
I
you
just
have
started
to
seeing-
get actors and dress them up to, but they're just real now. They're real and they're on John Dylan's show.
Yeah, you can't tell this is an onion clipping.
Yes, like I'm like, did Chris hire a production company and some actors, get a wardrobe and everything? Nope. They walk
The
into
funniest
John
part
Dylan's
is
studio.
I listened to like an hour of this one thinking they were gay.
Yeah.
With each other. Because I don't know, I guess that's just like eventually you're like, okay, well, why else would John Dylan have two white dudes on his podcast other than that they're gay? And then they kept talking about being brothers-in-law. I was like, oh god, that's fucking weird.
Oh, that's
like
this one.
He's married to his sister, and then they ended up fucking and getting gay married or something, because they also kept talking about our daughter or something. But eventually I was like, oh, they're not gay.
These were hard episodes to listen to because this guy,
make a good point,
this
Jared.
guy sniffed in the microphone so many times. I was like, man, is he on coke or something?
Jared, you really you just given John Dylan his career opportunity of all career opportunities is just go full ex-Mormon Jerry Springer. And I don't mean troll as an internet troll, but troll as in fishing troll. You troll that Mormon polyamory group. You got a lifetime of episodes there.
Oh, Christ. Yeah, that was... I'm still in that group. I don't know how I'm in that group because she
that's neat. I'm glad you are, because I'm never going to get in there.
Like, I never... Well, you might. Well, not with your profile picture.
No, I have to fix that. No. Sometimes I think about going incognito again. But
I had that same profile picture for a while. I'm surprised she didn't flip through my profile picture, because she flipped through my Facebook and found something where I made a pronouns joke, and she's like, that could be misconstrued as transphobic. So defend yourself. And I was like, I just ignored it because I noticed I was going to do that Chad meme where it just said no. But then I noticed that I was actually in the group. Like, I'm actually in the ex-Mormon polyamory group.
I've made comments on NPR stuff where I'm being snarky. And I have had people dig shit up from, and I'm like, wow. Wow, really?
Dude, the one I always get, I've had several people dig up from years ago, or just during the election, the Trump-Biden election. I made a joke about how, well, like, I guess once these votes are tallied, the plus side to Trump losing is that he'll just be able to be completely unhinged on Twitter rather than gracefully holding back like he has for the last 4 years. That'd be nice.
That's funny.
That's the people dig it up and they're like, you.
They think you're being real.
Yeah, we should do like a. I called Trump graceful on Twitter. How do I have to be more clearly
that is
satirical?
obvious
Nobody
satire.
thinks that.
That is obviously excellent satire, but
no, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, none of those guys thought that Trump was graceful on Twitter.
It's because the iron law of woke projection never misses.
Yeah,
that's what happened there.
Okay,
like the blending of conservative politics. I know I missed the whole Benson era, so but like I don't like this.
What do Christian nationalists believe?
This is so
Christian
funny.
nationalists literally worship Trump. They think he's a god. They pray to him and stuff. At least some of them do.
My wife at one point said, like, that's your mission. Like, you're helping students who like don't fit BYU, and you say some like semi-liberal thing, and they're like, wait, I don't see that in a BYU.
Semi-liberal.
Talk to me after class.
Yeah, I love that framing. I'm real sure it was some. Give us an example of something that's. Give us. I want to hear this guy name 3 semi-liberal.
Conversations.
There's a very select crowd in your
I just watched this afternoon.
This is like every questioning liberal Mormon ever, except like Patrick Mason and maybe one other person. And at
that's
some
all
point,
of them.
It turns to
Every
rage. Some of the
single
angriest people I've ever met are non-believing Mormons who are living a lie, acting like they're believers when they really aren't, and it just wears them out.
There are people like him, these fringy, like liberal Mormons, right? And I'm in academia, so like you get that label, right?
Yeah, we know, trying to do the progressive, liberal, semi-believing Mormon thing.
I was very literalist about everything, and
Weird liberal brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Because when you're quietly liberal or even known to be liberal,
I don't think it means what you think it means.
in a believing family, you feel this tension because you're different than everybody else. You know things that most people don't know.
Holy shit, that sounds so Mormon.
Isn't it?
John Dehlin must have been the best.
What's that?
John Dehlin must have been the best Mormon ever.
Oh, yeah.
That's like one of the most Mormon things I've ever heard. He's like, because like you know things that other people don't know. Like I remember having discussions with people like, how do you feel being around people who don't know the truth?
It's clips like this that I remember that very good and useful Mormon saying of count your blessings. And the blessing I'm counting right now is that John Dehlin is not actually in practice as an actual fucking therapist. He's a dangerous hack. He is a dangerous hack.
Yeah.
But he knows the truth.
He's got the truth, though.
You feel this tension because you're different than everybody else. You know things that most people don't know.
So much better here with intellectuals, isn't it, boys?
You feel sometimes alone and isolated. You also want people to know the truth, and you want people to see the world clearly. And
The
with all the
truth.
information.
This is simple stuff here, go! Everyone else is just ignorant. At least we're smart enough to know better.
Do I talk about the history that I know or the tough things with my believing family? Or do I just let it go?
Feels like as you're talking about both your wives, there is a little bit more of a liberal-ish kind of approach.
They're one of us, right?
Even
What's
though
that?
Jesus said, judge not, and always have a good time.
You're going to suffer.
What was your question?
It was just funny. She's talking about their wives and we're like, so from your from your wives' things they said, I'm getting a sense that they're one of us.
Yeah, totally.
You know what's funny is like this image right here of Margie Dehlin. Like we could just take that right there and caption it and just say that she is like the editor-in-chief of NPR and everybody would believe it.
Kind of approach.
Oh, you believe in hell?
She looks
Even
exactly
though
like
Jesus
that Freedom
said,
Tunes
judge
person.
not, and always have a good time.
You're going to suffer before the Almighty. Not that I believe there's an objective Almighty.
It's most likely a metaphor.
I think my wife was a lot more progressive than me and kind of pushed me along. She grew up, with gay friends in Seattle. So marrying my wife,
gay friends in Seattle? No way.
Person I would say for a member of the church.
Wow, so you did. How long were you doing the progressive liberal Mormon
long
thing?
time.
It works with progressive
Didn't say much to
Mormonism.
Liz.
And it sounds like Mitch leapfrogs you in like a couple days,
Yeah.
and just completely skips the
That's
progressive
right.
Mormon part. So we're now trying to do the progressive liberal.
Meet new people, and no one knows me, so maybe
Thank God for the script.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
I would listen to these talks, and a couple of them were from President Benson, and he was talking about socialism is bad. You shouldn't accept any help from the government. And I was just feeling torn up inside, and like I'm not doing enough. I'm not support my family. Why can't I, provide?
You can grow up with like dialogues and sunstones on the coffee table.
I don't know. It's bad. I find that a little quick.
No, I know. I'm like, 'cause it's a sad
Like,
thing. He's like actually
I have
breaking down about not being
100% sympathy with him, but like, goddamn the context.
I can't.
It doesn't mean you got to be pro-socialism, dude.
I can't deal with the amount of crying that happens. Like even the
Mormon
girl.
This is amazing. So you just put this together. We're not even halfway through, and this is just like an itty bitty sampling of one episode.
Yeah, listen,
super liberal.
And I cut out progressive, liberal, progressive. I cut them out.
Progressive views, hobnobbing with the world's
The counter in the bottom.
We're a little more progressive
Bottle water?
and ahead of the curve here in San Francisco.
Bottle water.
At that point I was trying to make sure my kids knew that I had liberal positions on some of these things.
Just in case?
No, just on I wanted to keep them in the church.
Give up your sinful ways. Not that I believe in sin. I I think it's more of a metaphor for not being gay enough or something.
Sense that teaching your children progressive Mormon ideology would help keep them in the church?
Absolutely.
What, by inoculation or what?
Yeah, by realizing that you didn't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That you could pick and choose.
No matter what. Wait a minute. Okay, you got to think of the metaphor here. You got to think of what is the baby and what is the bathwater. Because he's saying, like,
Can we
the
unpack
baby.
that?
So obviously, the baby is Mormonism, and the bathwater is like the baby is.
The bathwater is all the Mormon beliefs.
Getting rid of the bad Mormonism.
Beliefs, yeah.
But like, I swear to God, getting rid of the bathwater in his mind is like the baby is in there, because it's things like polyamory is acceptable, sex outside of marriage is acceptable. All of these all these things that Mormonism says are unacceptable and always has said are unacceptable are very acceptable, and you should tolerate them and encourage them. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, what are you holding on to? What Mormon belief? If you go full progressive Mormonism, what are you left with? What Mormon belief do you still have?
My position is almost throw out that baby, but we could keep that water around a little bit.
We can still use that water. Like John Larsen says, we got a water crisis. Hold on to the water you got.
Hold on to the water. That baby is just taking up resources. Hold on to that water.
The most important thing was the Savior's love for, mankind.
The Bible also says to never hurt anyone's feelings. And that's the most important thing, is that we're having fun.
And then also our love for other people.
Number one, how does one become a progressive Mormon bishop? What happens when a progressive Mormon bishop becomes a stake presidency member in an influential stake back east in the Boston area, and then has clashes with at least 2 general authorities?
Look, I get that you're old-fashioned in your morals, but as a progressive, I think you need to support everyone's lifestyle choices. If they aren't hurting anyone, let them live whatever life they want.
I agree with that. No victim, no crime.
Exactly. We all need to tolerate decisions made by others.
Glad we see eye to eye. Anyway, I've got to run. I've got to find a place where I can fill this thing's gas tank. Apparently it's a mile to the gallon.
Starting out as maybe an Orthodox Mormon bishop, but maybe the softening a little bit up until the point where he starts to become a progressive Mormon bishop.
You are going to metaphorically suffer before the metaphorical Almighty in some subjective sense.
And I know that there may be even progressive Mormons who share the cause, or even ex-Mormons.
The cause?
Think that might be counterproductive.
I mean, that shows some progressive leanings even as a kid then. Yeah. Because those are more Jesus love focused than they are like...
You were always one of the good ones.
Canada's more progressive than...
Canada's way more progressive. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, this is where my progressive kind of nuanced stuff comes in. I remember thinking, what is a miracle?
And that's what being a progressive religious person often means.
Oh my God.
Doesn't that little clip should be part of the intro?
Progressive and faithful.
It should be like, I hate that I'm a straight white male. And that's what a progressive liberal people mean.
Yeah.
Even the way he's like nod his head, it's like Barney the dinosaur shit.
He says progressive the way the Mormons say things like reverent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, just imagine like we have the cut of I hate that I'm a straight white male. Is that how he says it? I hate that I'm a straight white male.
This is where
I'll send it.
Progressive kind of nuanced stuff comes in. I remember thinking, what is a miracle?
Okay, here it is. What is a miracle? I hate that I'm a straight white male. I hate it sometimes.
I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male. And that's what being a progressive religious person often means.
That is perfection. We got to put that
together. That's got to be an eternal intro. You know what we got to do too is we got to actually like record some of our woke hymns. We got to do some of those.
Oh yeah.
That's
that. A friend of mine at work, I told him about it, and he did a like my postmodernity. I am doing it.
But intersectionality, I am doing it. My intersectionality. You got to record some of those.
Absolute
Yeah.
truth.
There's this kind of progressive privilege. It's a term I've never said before, but if you think about it, growing up as a Mormon in Berkeley, California, or Cambridge, Massachusetts, or even Manhattan, New York, or Potomac, Maryland, where your parents are wealthy, sophisticated, highly educated, highly connected.
All across the Midwest, people are picking up the pieces. Cities like Denver and Salt Lake are heavily damaged, but still all right. However, San Francisco, I'm afraid, has disappeared completely up its own asshole.
You have a very different
Classic
experience
episode.
growing up in the church than if you're raised in Draper or Sandy, or Brigham City or freaking Manti.
He talked about how people in Hollywood are ahead of the curve on social matters. He even took credit for the civil rights movement. Look.
But if you've got the right experience, you can grow up with like dialogues and sunstones on the coffee table, parents, super liberal progressive views, hobnobbing with the world's elite, ambassadors, big time lawyers.
Oh, thank God.
You know what?
Hold
I just
on
came
to
up
your
with a.
Orthodox Mormonism, but in a very progressive way.
Like, this is. I just realized what's going on with John Dehlin when he talks about things like
He's a snoot.
progressive tolerance.
He's a complete snoot. He is everything
that too. But like when he talks about like when his striving toward ideals of like liberalism and tolerance and understanding, he is 100% the gay Christian preacher railing against homosexuality. He wishes he understood, just like the gay preacher wants to understand what it is to be somebody who is really truly into diversity, or sorry, into heterosexuality. He wishes he was in diversity, and that's things like, because it's just like, as heterosexuals, we look at the gay preacher and like we can see what's going on, man. And as somebody who actually cares about humanity and liberalism and diversity and all this stuff that he pretends to care about, like I'm telling you, John, like I'm sorry, you just don't have it. You like you're gay. Like you are what like
you're gay,
what sexuality is to gay, you are to like human communication. You don't care about other people that are different from you. You're an authoritarian, and that's about it.
But like, good news, John Dehlin, almost nobody really does care about what other people want. So
I carried on, and one day, out of my sheer nerdiness and my obsession with trying to talk with everybody I can, and I was able to have at least a simple conversation in 5 languages in one day.
Damn.
And I did that because I'm so desperate, because I like understanding, I like languages, and I make the joke. It's like kind of true, and it's half true, and it's also a joke. But like, when Spanish speakers would ask me, like, how did you learn Spanish? And I'd always make the jokes like, well, I was raised in America, and if you want to have intelligent conversations about soccer, you have to learn Spanish. Right? And that, that's funny. But it's also not entirely untrue. Right?
Yeah.
Good call, by
that's
the way.
my motivation, right? And that's the thing, it's just like the gay preacher wants to be into women. Like, that's what I think. Like, Dehlin wants to be into diversity, but he just doesn't have it in him.
He wants to be into whatever keeps his podcast.
Listen,
yeah.
Listen to this. Listen to this one right here.
So who's your basketball role model?
Oh, my bad. I always really liked Dirk Nowitzki. I grew up in a German immersion
The
program.
white
so
one?
I thought Dirk was
Wow,
the whitest guy since Larry Bird?
Oh, wait, wait. I can't believe you're predicting here. Hold on.
John Dehlin's going to say you only picked the white guy, right?
Was to your era as Larry Bird was to mine.
Gotcha.
And I hate to say this, but like the white guy that the white guys could respect a little bit.
John Dehlin. I grew up a basketball fan. We did not think that way. You thought that way. Every kid I grew up around, we grew up with John Stockton. We still idolize Karl Malone. We still idolize Michael Jordan. We still idolize Scottie Pippen. If you played on any basketball court, young white kids in Salt Lake City, Utah, it always was a fight of who's Jordan, who's Pippen, who's Malone, who's Stockton. Nobody said, I'm the white guy. Nobody thought that way except for you, John Dehlin. It's more of that D'Angelo stuff that you guys feel guilty for what pieces of shit you were. And the people I grew up and around were not that way.
That's one of my favorite things.
There's always the kids who wanted to like root for guys who weren't the Jazz, and who did they root for? Sean Kemp.
Sean Kemp, or it was all everybody loved Jordan, man. I mean, half the stadium was Jordan with the, you know.
That's one of my favorite things to bring to attention when people talk about the whole Ariel being black thing and the little black girls being like, I'm finally represented. And I'm like, look, I've known a lot of black boys. They fucking love Goku. Like, especially dude, Brazilian boys love Dragon Ball Z. It's like their favorite thing in the whole world. And there's a lot of black dudes in Brazil. And a lot of them have tried to go Super Saiyan. They're like, oh, Goku, that's my man. That's my guy. And not a single one of them the whole time I said, God, I wish he was black.
Fuck, man. I'm tired of living like this, bro.
Bro, I don't even know where the fuck these Titans came from either.
That's what I'm saying. And why they attacking the hood?
Bro, no.
You wildin', bro. Fuck. But hey, I'm finna go to the store, bro. Hey, yeah, y'all gotta roll, man. You never know what's gonna happen in these streets, bro, for real.
It's the colossal nigga!
Oh, shit! Shoot!
Oh shit, he finna swing! Bitch!
I wish I could relate to him.
Did you ever watch the City of God, the Brazilian movie?
Yeah, that's a rough movie.
It
I've
is.
seen it
But that's one of the
multiple
things, like, because I showed that movie to my friends so many times, and it's about gangs in Rio, in the shittiest parts of Rio, kid gangs, right? And my friends are always asking me, like, wait, like, is that movie fake? Because like the gang is multiracial, you know. And I had to like keep explaining to people, like, no, like Brazil.
I thought they would have thought it was fake because of how young those kids are, but no, that's how young the kids
There's a gang where like the main character is quite black. There's an Italian guy. There's a ginger guy, and there's not really like you can't really see a racial component. It seems very mixed. And that's because Brazil is very mixed. And that's not to say that they don't have racism, they don't have discrimination. And this is an argument, not even an argument, it's a discussion, it's a wall that I've run into. And it's one of those things that, like, for 20 years before I knew what critical theory was, what critical race theory was, and why all these college-educated people had this issue every time I run this, because I'd always try to have this conversation, trying like to seriously, you know, engage with this whole thing of talking about race. And I'd always say, like, you know, like in Brazil, they have racism, they have discrimination, but it's entirely different. You know, like the way they talk about, you know, I'd always say, it's like, for example, in Brazil, it's perfectly okay to call somebody a mulatto. It doesn't, there's no negative connotation, you know. But in America, God help you, you know. And I even remember when I was a little kid, and I was listening to my parents speaking in Portuguese. And I asked them, like, what's that word, that mulata? Mulata? You were calling that lady, oh, you said mulata. And both of my parents told me, like, in Brazil, it means somebody that was mixed white and African, generally. In America, don't ever say it. You know? Like, and that was made very clear to me very young. And like, and so I grew up with this thing where it's like, I understood American racism and I understood Brazilian racism. They're both bad, you know, but they're not the same fucking thing. And what I'm getting at is, like, when you talk to an American college-educated idiot, they talk about racism as though it's the same thing everywhere. Like, and another example of this, when the
BLM in Europe, the BLM in England that's been going on, the Lotus Eaters have been covering it.
One day, when I drove for Lyft, and I gave a guy a lift, and he was from the Dominican Republic, and we got on this subject. And I always said, one of my examples that I'd like to use about like how this works is that if you take like Salt Palace Convention Center, fill a room with 100. I'm sorry, I've been drinking a little bit. I'm going to fix this. Fill a room with 50 Dominicans and 50 Haitians. Sorry, I got it now. You fill a room with 50 Dominicans and 50 Haitians. You bring a racist white guy from South Carolina into the room, and he'll say, I see about 100 black people. Right? You bring a Dominican and a Haitian into the room, they'll say, that's 50 Dominicans and that's 50 Haitians. There's no confusion to them, right?
Yeah.
To us, what's the difference? To them, everything in the world.
I was HR for a place that was 99% Spanish, Hispanic, Latinos, and all the fighting was Venezuelans versus Mexicans. That was all the fighting. I'm not even joking. I'm not joking.
No, I believe you.
No, I was there too. No, that's
Like
like,
them-
I mean, that's one of the things that drove me nuts working at the Salt Palace is that there was that one Ecuadorian lady that she was Ecuadorian Nurse Ratched, and she was one of the bosses. And that's one of the things that bugged me there is that because I'm not fluent.
They
in Spanish,
let
but I
her
get
get away
enough.
with everything.
And is that because the way she spoke to people in Spanish does not fly, right? She was two people. Like, she was a different person in English than in Spanish. She was positively abusive in Spanish. And like you say, she was abusive to the Mexicans.
Just see that their Biden's administration is funding classes to Ecuador of LGBT. They really are sending money to Ecuador for LGBT classes on or harassment classes or something.
That's
like that.
probably what the Ecuadorians want.
Yeah.
And because he,
right now.
It's what I wanted to pay for. Okay.
He always looked awkward. He wasn't coordinated. I was never.
This is one of the things that he's talking about awkward and coordination. When we were young, there was a stigma on Larry Bird. Nobody wanted to act like Larry Bird because we all thought he couldn't jump. In that time frame, jumping was the cool thing, and Air Jordan's jumping was what every kid in the world wanted to do. And if you couldn't jump, you were goofy Larry Bird.
Bird was a shooter, kind of a dribbler. But yeah.
And at that era, nobody cared anymore. Everybody
Real
was
quick.
Air
Does
Jordan
Larry
crazy.
Does Larry Bird have a shoe?
No, because that was before the shoe stuff. The shoe stuff really kind of started in the 80s. It was Magic Johnson who really started all that. But I think Bird
there's
kind
no
of came
Larry
in
Bird
too, right
shoe.
with it. And there's that whole series. There's an HBO series out now about Bird versus Johnson. And that's another series that go look into the way they try to represent stuff and see if there's actual some truth to some of the ways they try to frame it up, because they try to make it more of a thing than it really was. It was a little bit of a thing, but they try to make it more of a thing than it really was.
Slightly tangential because of that Dahmer documentary. I've been going back and watching the actual trial testimony. And like you brought up, like a lot of people brought up, because everybody says like, oh, they didn't care. The police didn't care because it was gays. In the trial, one of the police officers and the detectives, they testify.
They had to be careful because
We
it was
were
gays.
instructed not to aggressively pursue so-called gay stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like
there's always consequences to your stuff. That there's only trade-offs. That's all there ever is. But
exactly,
it'll always roll downhill to being the cop's fault. Because I mean, there was stuff even like I was seeing stuff because it's in the news right now because Kanye is getting canceled and sued for saying that Chauvin killed himself with a speedball. And so just this morning, like Crowder went over it again and all sorts of stuff. And what was he talking about as far as like the trial goes? The Derek Chauvin thing was also that he was instructed. He had been instructed to treat people that way, especially if they announced that they had COVID. And they said he said that he had COVID and he had gloves on and he couldn't touch him. And then he was also trained from the handbook.
We're super coordinated, but I could always shoot, and he shot very well, and just always went in. So,
and to be clear, I loved Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Charles Barkley and all the others as well. But I did feel a special kin to Larry Bird. And, and you to Dirk.
Yep, that's right.
Which means
you're such a knob.
So I'm kind of just starting to realize the more I watch this shit that like maybe literally everyone is just always projecting. Like
it has to be. It's all that Robert DiAngelo thing.
But I'm including myself. Like maybe I just think that like the world is less racist than it.
And
actually
maybe more of them think like Dehlin.
Yeah, because like they're talking about how we know everybody. We know everybody liked Larry Bird because he's the white guy, and we're over here like, what? No, we know everybody just liked the best basketball players. And so, but maybe, like, it's just...
No, see, this is the problem. This is the real problem. I don't know why he was feeling some sort of kinship to Larry Bird. Maybe because he was extra lerpy or doofy or something like that.
He's tall and
he's
dorky.
also 10 years earlier or something like that. But
when
the same way these guys will go back in time and say, yeah, I was there in Provo in the 90s. I heard people talk like those guys on Under the Banner of Heaven. I heard that. Well, whatever. But I was there in the 90s. I played basketball with a lot of kids. A lot of kids. Basketball was my thing through that era. And all there was ideation for Michael Jordan. That's all there was.
Oh, it was, yeah, I mean, it was, for me growing up, it was Kobe. Like,
and nobody sat there and nobody stopped and said he is black, but gosh, I sure like his ball. Like, there was none of that. It was Michael Jordan is God. He's God. And I like my team. You go anywhere in the country, I like my team, but Michael Jordan's God. Like, it's just, even like Jordan beat the Jazz. Everybody here loved the Jazz. And nobody could still ultimately hate Michael Jordan for beating us, you know, because he was just a god. He was a god in that time frame, and there was none of this. I know that, like, I can't go around projecting, but I am more than positive. This is part of my problem with Mormon stories and all this stuff, is they talk about stuff, and so many of these different people in this Mormon corridor, I noticed, just don't even really come from like the center of Mormon hub of Salt Lake City or anything where we grew up and around. And just because it was like a suburban area with a lot of different kids, and I ended up going to a lot of different wards, and I played ball in a lot of different places, and I met tons of Mormon kids, and they were all just kind of like how my nephews are now, just crazy about NBA and football and all that sorts of stuff, and did not think like this. They don't think like this, and I can think of droves and droves and droves of kids. I can 100% back that up, saying no. They didn't think like you and D'Angelo did, John Dehlin. No, they didn't.
Yeah. No, that's another thing I run into all the time sometimes when I try to have these conversations with people. And again, it's like I always go into them sincerely, and then it always backfires with me. And the backfire is correlated with how much formal education they've had. But now I've lost my train of thought a bit. But it's a similar thing where, like, I try to explain to them, like, this concept about how, like, I have, you know, because of my multicultural upbringing, in some ways, like, I have these two different sets of, like, racial languages, and I don't like any of them, you know, but, like, I'm cognizant, and like, oh, that's what I was getting at. It's like, so for example, like, you know, for a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm just nervous. I just feel, I have subconscious bias. I don't like brown people. And I have to say, like, well, let me tell you, my aunt and uncle adopted Polynesian kids, my closest cousins, all my sleepovers. Like, I saw little tiny brown wieners for as long as I can remember, because we went swimming together. We were little kids, you know, they bathed us together. There's not a time in my life that I didn't know what it was like to be around brown people.
See, but it's also not.
And
that
so
big of a
I'm over
deal.
it, right? And so, like, and I try to explain to people that, like, maybe you've got this thing. Maybe you've got it. But I can tell you that I don't.
Yeah, like the way D'Angelo wants me to scour my brain, I've done that.
Yeah.
And I stop and I go, no, I know I don't think like that.
Yeah.
And didn't think like that about any black person I've ever met.
This is why the whole colorblind thing is so important to me, because I remember being like, because my childhood was in Rexburg, Idaho, which is 98% Mormon. I'm not even kidding. I didn't make that up.
Yeah.
We've actually looked it up before, but
I've
like,
been there.
It's mostly white, you know? And I remember there was one black kid in my elementary school. He was this adopted kid. And it was like the first black kid I had ever even seen or heard. And I like asked my mom about it. I was like, Mom, Nate's skin looks different. And she was like, oh yeah, he's black. I was like, it's not black though. She's like, yeah, well, it's more of a brown, but we call it black. You know, that's just what we call it. Some people have different skin color. It doesn't mean anything different about him. He's just a normal kid like you. Treat him normal. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was the end. Like, that's all I had to know about race ever. Like, immediately, my mom taught it to me in like one sentence, and then I've never had issues like this. And this is why I think that, like, when I hear Kara talk, and she, in that episode where she's revealing all of the secrets to the Mormon person she knew, it confirmed a thing that I've believed for a while about her as we've been watching her stuff, is like, I was like, she must have just been the worst type of Mormon. Like the projection that she puts onto all other Mormons, she must have been the most insufferable type of Mormon. And then she confirmed it in this, like John Dehlin asked her, what's the craziest thing about Kara that we might not know? And this girl said, well, she was like, I had to calm her down because I guess this woman was a missionary in Kara's ward. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I was telling her to calm down because she had a friend that went to the Book of Mormon musical, and she was like acting traumatized by it. And I had to tell her, like, hey, you gotta chill. I understand you're upset, but so then she confirmed what I've suspected, that, like, yes, she was this most insufferable type of Mormon, and she thinks that everybody was that way.
Yeah. A couple months before my mission was those first couple South Park episodes where a bunch of missionaries got killed by a giant firecracker snake, right? And I was so happy to see like Mormons and missionaries on the TV because I just wasn't used to seeing that. And I remember just laughing my ass off that those that they killed off those Mormons with it was like, you remember it? It was like the first episode. Somebody lit off a giant fireworks snake.
Oh yeah.
And it killed some Mormon missionaries in like the very first or second episode of South Park.
And it's called Summer Sucks. That's
I laughed so hard at it that some of my friends thought I was laughing too hard at it. Like, why are you so, I thought it was nothing but absolute hilarity, and that's the difference between me and Kara 100%, like with that sort of stuff. But you're right. Yeah, she saw that. She's the type of person who'd freak out if her friends went to the Book of Mormon play. I remember what I was going to say about Derek Chauvin. The Derek Chauvin thing was also that he had been instructed to treat people that way, especially if they announced that they had COVID, and he said that he had COVID and he had gloves on and he couldn't touch him. And then he was also trained from the handbook that that's how you put your knee on the back of the stuff. And it still got all railroaded that way. And Kanye was just honest about it. He got canceled. And he's getting sued for $250 million.
I hope he gets the retrial he deserves. I don't know if that'll happen. I think the best thing, I think his best hope, unfortunately, is for a Republican president to pardon him. But because he deserves a retrial at the very least.
Oh, yeah. 100%. There's just too much bias going into that.
No Republican has the balls for that.
Yeah, that dude's going to serve as that dude is a political, he's a political sacrifice.
It's disgusting. It's evil.
Everything else is kind of up for grabs, right?
That is like, I remember I watched the movie Green Mile. You remember Green Mile? And at the end of it, he's like as innocent as that guy or something like that. But he's just got to take the kill for it. And at the end, I'm like, why has he got to take the kill? I was like, why is he still got to be killed for this or something like that? And they just go through with it at the end, and it's totally like that. Like, well, he's just got to be sacrificed.
And that's
another episode of South Park, the Britney Spears episode. You remember that?
Yeah,
because it ends up it just starts out with about paparazzi hounding her, and then the reveal is this like it's like the lottery. That book, The Lottery. It's like, oh no, every once in a while, we pick a little girl.
Yeah,
we turn her into a pop star. We wreck her, and that's the sacrifice, and that's what makes the crops grow.
It's so spot on. You want to know what? If you follow her on Instagram, she's posting these constant like nudes on Instagram. Man,
no, that's the thing that Ben Shapiro pointed out about like her conservatorship. Is like he's like the legal threshold to get a legal conservatorship over an adult is extremely high. It is very, very high. In fact, I might have told this story before, but I have a tiny little anecdotal personal story about this kind of thing, which was when I was a legal courier. One day, one of the most surreal things I ever had to do as a legal courier is serve documents on a guy in a coma. And what the documents read, like the documents were like, guy in coma. Your sister says you're in a coma.
Oh, yeah.
She wants to take over your life, If you are not in a coma, you need a lawyer right now. Yeah. So, yeah. it was crazy,
So
and that was part of the legal threshold to get conservatorship over a guy in a coma.
That's one of the things.
Over an adult with millions of dollars to her name, the legal threshold for that is fantastically high.
Well, that's one of the things I've noticed is that people really, really, really hate the guy who's like, okay, is this the whole story, right? Because the times I've done that in my life, and Britney Spears was one of them when they were first talking about the conservatorship. I remember being on this message board, and they're like, "This is bullshit. Her abusive dad is taking over her life entirely for
Like
no
that's the
reason
thing
other
a
than
dad can do to an adult girl.
No,
like
well,
in normal circumstances.
I was like, well, what you said sounds like bullshit. Like, not like you're wrong. I'm saying what you said sounds like something evil has happened. Is that what has happened? And they get mad at you for even asking that question. Of course, it's what happened. It's evil.
Follow her on Instagram. She is out of it. She is not with it, man. But anyway.
That's how I approached my progressive kind of approach to Mormonism was even on the church's website. There's what is doctrine page until it's essentially canonized. It's not binding doctrine. It's just a teaching from one of the brethren that you have to pay attention to. But that's it.
Now you can be a Christian without everyone thinking you're a total square.
I used to think you were a total square. Turns out you're not like one of those Christians who follows the Bible, bro.
Now I can have Christianity and my sin too. Thanks, Christianity Light.
Yeah, you were becoming a super progressive Mormon leader.
Regressive
leader.
I'm sure a lot of those Eastern Seaboard Mormons with smart, educated parents were digging it.
Yeah.
Young kids are smart these days. Yes. Progressive and insightful and moral.
Regressive.
It was funny because I looked at that instruction from the First Presidency as a way for me to help branch members become a little more progressive.
Regressive.
Sense that teaching your children progressive ideology would help keep them in the church.
Absolutely.
What, by inoculation or what?
I progressed 180.
By teaching them things that aren't Mormon.
More and more progressive.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the thing you just read in Sunday school, that's not real. That's not true. Stay in the church, though. Why would you just leave it? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say, because if you leave it, you'll probably find some shitty ideology. But, like, if you believe in none of it, why would you stick around? Like, what is there to say? Because
I've said it a lot of
to be
times.
true. So the idea that it's not true, but I should still go because it's somehow true in some weird fucking way. I don't know.
Like, there's never a time in my life that I didn't have issues with doctrine and history. There was never a time in my life that I didn't see contradictions. There was never a time in life that I wasn't aware of abusive or irregularities in leadership. But none of that had anything to do with my not being Mormon anymore. I stopped being a Mormon the moment I stopped believing it.
I know that's
And
people
that's-
don't want to believe. They want to have this magical moment where, like, I was bravely standing up as an ally to the LGBTQIA plus movement. Like, no, you just like
if you ever actually live like you hear some of these people talk where like you believed it all, like Kara and some of these people like, oh yeah, when I was 100%. Like, are you fucking insane? Were you insane then? Who was 100% into Mormonism? Nobody's 100% into Mormonism. Be serious.
So I wanted to check your guys' ranking with this because I gave this ranking on Dan Ellsworth's post this week, and I said I think this is the actual rankings of belief. And so like the top,
oh yeah, this is great.
The top are TBMs. I don't know if something needs to be arranged, but the top are TBMs. Then you have the active passive members. Then a casual Jack Mormon who still believes that they drink their alcohols or whatever. Then me, I'm just a self-described ex-Mormon who still thinks the church is net positive for society. Then comes the progmos. Like
they're definitely below us.
They're below us. Like those guys, like that guy on Don Dehlin's podcast is below us, and he's a whatever bishop leaver or whatever this sort of thing. Then Dehlin, and Dehlin, like it's kind of funny because I'm putting this below this, but Dehlin here because the truth of it is Dehlin's actually pretty high on belief. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like he wants it to be something that's real, but he wants
Dehlin
it to be
is a
his thing.
faith-driven person.
Yeah, he wants it to be his thing. He wants Mormonism to be his world, and he wants it to be there just his way. And
Mormonism is one of their horcruxes.
same with the prodigal. The transhumanist hermetic gnosis occult world still using Mormonism as one of their horcruxes. Yeah, Mormonism is just one of them. Like the tarot cards, the whatever, the I don't know, the serpents, the David Ikes, the whatever.
What is up with the tarot thing lately? That's the thing I'm seeing a lot of.
The cross, all this sorts of stuff. It
comes around in there's like a cycle of shit that happens in the lobster group. So Morgan Aldous is the one that started the group, right? He gave it to Alejandro. Like now, like the whole time he's talked about Catholic symbolism and
Alejandro or
Morgan and he's been on quite a few podcasts. He had one for a while, All This with Aldous. Like I don't know if he still is, but he was like an ANCAP at one point.
God.
And he's like, he got real big into this tarot card reading and was like, well, I don't think it really predicts anything about it, but it's a good thing for like archetypal structure. I don't know. All of my dealings with him have been positive. I like the guy, but that like tarot cards to me, I can't see them as anything other than funky bullshit.
Yeah, they're fun. It's a fun little like if you think of it of just like a creativity game, like almost like a writing game.
But that's just it. So I was going to make that
but
point.
To take it seriously, Jesus.
Because this is kind of where Quaco is. Quaco's totally sort of this. But at the same time,
transhumanist hermetic gnosticist occult bro still using Mormonism as one of his horcruxes.
Yes. But
can we convince Midnight Mormons to put that caption under Quaco on their next episode?
Well, I actually said it. Like, if you go back to the episode where they asked me what I thought each one of them was, I kind of said, well, Quaco's kind of an occultish type guy. And I said, that's how I said it. But it's the horcrux is the way I say it's hermetic is like they really kind of believe they're going to bring about like the God in some sort of way through their random stuff. But the one difference between Quaco and some of those other guys
saying is that Joseph Smith restored Christianity. They're going to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. But the difference between Quaco and those other guys is the level of fun he puts into it. You know what I mean? Like putting the fun into it, like makes it all cool. You know what I mean?
That guy is irrepressibly likable.
Yeah.
Like he's one of those people dangerous.
Tell my wife that.
She doesn't think he's fun with
my wife. She loathes Corden and Quaco or Corden.
Really?
Yeah, she despises Corden, and I've had this conversation with her so many times because we did like on her channel. We watched live their CES letter breakdown, and it was like terrible. If I remember right, they pulled it. So, and I was very, very drunk when I watched it. And so we laughed at, and so she like, ever since then, she's hated Carta. And I used to like get drunk and want to watch Quaco because I thought it'd be fun, but it was never fun. So I used to make fun of him more. And now like the more this goes on, the more I'm like, well, I get along with them more than I do most of the ex-Mormons. But my wife's like, no, Cardin is annoying.
I like them all. I like them all a whole lot. I like that they bring fun and wildness to the apologetics world. I like that they dare to do some ripping on their own side. You know, like I really like that about them.
I get the thing where Cardin is spiky. He's loud and he's spiky and he's bombastic, and
he'll say some.
You know what I'm saying
about atheists and all that.
And I'm a lot like him, and that's things like.
No, I know that's what
I desperately want. Not even on the air, even just privately in a room over a root beer. I would really love to sort Cardin out on atheism. He's like a really genuinely nice guy. He seems like a guy who ultimately wants to be friends with everybody. He's just
they're way cool. And part of the thing about them is like, I mean, they put me on with. I mean, they just put me on, man. Like, who does that? That's not what John Larsen does. That's not what John Dehlin does. You know, but go ahead.
Because it just kind of, I mean, it's something that's popped into my mind before, but just right now, where like I think it's something kind of fundamentally different. It's something I got from my dad, and that I think might make us kind of different. Like, what's different about us from Kara, John, and John? And I think it's that like we
have the truth.
We want to be friends with everybody. Kara has already admitted there are certain kinds of people she wants nothing to do with. John has already told us that. Like the Johns, they've both made it clear there are certain kinds of people that they just have considered. And as much as like the three of us, as much as we bitch and moan, as much as we're critical, we are into people enough that like we want to be friends with everybody.
We follow the actual paradox of tolerance, not the bastardized paradox of tolerance, which is actually repressive tolerance. We follow the actual paradox of tolerance from Karl Popper, which is if you're going to be not causing like damage or some weird definition of what damage is, because we're really going off of like actual violence or something like that. But if you're going to stay in the realm of joking and talking and playing and working with ideas and talking to people and coming around and we're game for it. But if you're people who just 100% will not talk, like talking's off the table, then we got a paradox of tolerance right there. The real one from Karl Popper, not repressive tolerance, which is your version of it, which is we just will not even tolerate the thoughts of I will tolerate any thought as long as it's thoughts, you know.
So this might be not the perfect segue, but I needed something to tell a story that I think is kind of related to this. And it's a story my dad has told me a few times, and it's a story. It's one of the key moments in my dad's life as a Mormon of learning this kind of thing. And it's when my dad, after his mission, he worked on an ocean liner that ran between San Francisco and Hawaii in the late 60s, right? And he was just a crewman, like, you know, a merchant marine type guy. And he described about how, like, you know, because he was young conservative, returned missionary from Utah, young white guy, all those things, you know, an American. And my grandpa was extremely conservative, hated FDR. He even hated Frank Sinatra. And
FDR did.
And my dad talked about how, like, you know, because there was a lot of tension. Because first off, a lot of the crew were African Americans. And they were African Americans from LA. And my dad talked about how, like, particularly the African Americans from LA, and like this, I hope I'm not being controversial, watch Blazing Saddles. In the late 60s, you know, there was this whole movement going on. And my dad talked about it. He's like, you know, they had a chip on their shoulder. Rightly so, you know, justifiably. But, you know, and this was one of the tensions. The other thing is that there was a lot of homosexuals, you know, and they hit on my dad. And my dad talked about how, like, early on there was this tension because he was like, I'm a Mormon and I'm from Utah and I'm into women and I'm not, you know, hey, these are my things. And then he tells this story about how one day, like, they were all drinking and my dad was drinking too. Because, you know, everybody had seen, you know, because they live in cabins, in crew cabins. So everybody saw my dad's magic underwear and they were making fun of him for it and all this stuff. And so this was one day they were all drinking and being silly. And my dad decided to be silly because he saw, you know, everybody else's underwear. And so, like, one of these young black guys from LA had these red satin underpants. And so my dad, like, snuck into the cabin and came out wearing the red satin underpants, you know, and did a little dance and all this stuff. And everybody kind of chuckled a little bit. Well, that guy, meanwhile, slunk off and put on my dad's garments. So this is like the late 60s, and my dad sees this black guy coming out wearing his garments, and he starts dancing and doing all this silliness. And my dad describes, like, for the first moment, like, just total shock and terror and existential dread. And then he just melted into laughter because of how funny it was, right? And my dad tells this story as like this critical moment in his life where he, like, learned tolerance, you know. Anyway, I wanted to tell that story, so there that is.
That's a wild story. I never heard that when I was here, but yeah. So, like, it gets down to that stuff because people for a long time they were resharing that meme of the paradox of tolerance, and they were just off on it. And we had to point out that, like, you guys are taking the Marcuse of repressive tolerance concept of this, but the actual deal of it is like, I'm fine with different trans thoughts, as we all have always said. We're fine with trans thoughts as long as they're an adult, as long as you're not forcing other people as a totalitarian to agree with you in some sort of wild way and actually affecting their lives by making them get canceled or whatever, be held responsible for that thing, or taking action on kids, which you should have way more caution with. I think adults should have more caution with too, but I'm sure they're able to make the decision. But it's just the actual paradox of tolerance. The paradox of tolerance says when conversation ends and you're just refusing to have conversation. And I think we've shown over a long period of time here that Larsen actually refuses conversation. He just refuses conversation entirely of anything that goes against him or disagrees with him. But anyway, so then there's the angry ex-Mormons. You might think they're the lowest, but I don't think they are.
No, they're not the lowest.
They're higher in belief than the ones who just leave it alone. That's something that they got to understand. Is like, as long as they're still jagging into it and pushing harder, they're still holding on to something. And then the divinity school, this is my own stereotype. I'm sure there's some divinity school kid out there who's a full believer or whatever, but every single one that's making a name for themselves, Petrie, Dan Maclellan, Jackson Washburn, whoever else, I've seen a couple others, I think they are all Machiavellian, cynical liars about their belief, and they're trying to use it to get some sort of clout. That's what I think they're all doing. Sorry, that's just how I see it. And
I'm with you.
But I don't know, maybe some of that needs to be rearranged or something. But I was gonna show this, not to show any clip of it, but these guys here who are Dehlin had them on. Were they these transhumanists?
Oh God!
I watched this whole episode with them, and I'm like, the Mormons are the hard atheists, and Dehlin is the Mormon. Like I don't know how else to say it. These guys, the way that they view that the body is just its flesh, and it can be saved maybe in like a computer or something like that. And that's why I really call it like Horcruxes and Hermetic stuff. Lindsay's gotten in this too, and I've talked about it before. Like one of the good ways to remember or think about Horcruxes are Nintendo games. I remember the old Castlevanias. You had to go around and get all the pieces of Dracula to put Dracula back together and bring about the apocalypse. Or you had to go, the Horcruxes, like you had to go find the different Horcruxes of the different pieces of the soul of the bad guy at the end to bring it back together and bring about the ending apocalypse. Or it's all about, we've got to go find all these different little pieces of esoteric knowledge to bring about some being that can live forever. That's going to be some sort of trans cyber. You guys look at that AI version of like that AI predicted humans were going to evolve into? Did you watch that?
No.
That's kind of how these guys, you didn't watch it?
Is it just the South Park?
No, I haven't. I've
from South Park.
I've looked into the transhumanism guys, and they're fucking.
Because that guy looks a little bit like one of the Goobacks.
Yeah, these.
cut that in for me.
This is Mr.
I was thinking Hunger Games, but you made me change my bio, Chris.
Do you know the Goobacks, Jared? The South Park episode.
The future.
Oh yeah.
I can't play too much of South Park stuff in a row, or it blocks me. It's a future Gooback. Oh god.
You made.
Oh, it's fun when stereotypes are true.
You made me change my bio finally. For a couple years now, it's been very white, very fragile, but you made me change it, Chris.
Did you find the AI? Your bio?
What's your bio now?
Transhumanist Hermetic Gnosis and GoPro still using one of his Horcruxes.
I didn't understand.
Hold on. I'll put it on. Hold on. I gotta find the.
No, honestly, I love that list. All you got to do is you should number them because people like numbers.
Yeah.
No, but that was brilliant.
In order of importance, is that what we're going with?
No, just because like the Letterman top 10 thing. But no, I don't know. Really, for me, the funniest thing is because like Chris Hanna, when he's funny, has that Norm Macdonald funny thing where it goes over the head of 90% of the audience. Like there's 20% of people who are mad at it, and it's because they know why. Right? Then there's like the 60% of people who are pretending to laugh, and then there's the people who.
Let's see here. I'm gonna see if I can find that AI thing. You got to see that. This AI predicted what the evolution of human, and it's what these transhumanist dudes.
I am just at the point now where somebody's like transhumanism. Like, okay, I've heard of magic.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, it's kind of like they think of it. You're just going to upload your being into like some computers, and the computer's going to get better and better, and all that sort of stuff.
I
But,
always
mean,
imagined doing a series of like creepy creepy Twilight Zone science fiction thing, all on the variations of the theme from that. Because like there's that David Eagleman that he's a neuroscientist, and I heard him talking about this idea that theoretically it will become possible to model someone's brain state at the point of death, and that they could live again, continue to live in a computer. And I always had this idea of like doing the same, doing the story over and over again, but having different scenarios. Like in one scenario, the machine breaks halfway through, and you end up just having half of your brain.
Shit.
Or like just all kinds of variations where like
so watch this video.
Like something goes wrong with the algorithm, and you're left with nothing but your anger.
This was asking the AI. This was asking the AI what's the evolution of humans, right? And
right now it's a Disney.
And those transhumanist guys think it's kind of something like this, and they claim they're Mormons still, and they haven't been excommunicated, and they're hard materialists like this.
Hey, all right. Don't you know where legs go?
What?
I said, don't you know where legs go, AI?
There was like 4 legs on that guy.
It's still going.
Did he just turn into a building and then a tube?
It's the Matrix.
You just become the intro scene to Mega Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's circuits.
Man, kind of like Tron.
But that's really how those transhumanists who still claim they're Mormons guys see it. They think like they think their dad who died is gone and wasn't around in time to get the future tech stuff high enough to be an eternal being yet, because we're trying to bring about the future of being eternal beings through computer stuff. And that really is the ultimate end goal of Mormonism too. Like Mormonism was always talking about that.
That is the magic of fantasy. Because like it's the same thing as like the Heaven's Gate cult. Their whole thing is like because they took Christianity and turned it into an alien thing, and that the kingdom of heaven wasn't the afterlife. The kingdom of heaven is an actual place where super evolved humans are, and like, okay, like, yeah, you can take this anywhere you want. Okay. It's kind of like, it's kind of like bringing it up again, the Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, is one of the things I love about that whole series is that originally it was a BBC radio drama, then it was a novel, then I think it was a TV show, a computer game, and a movie. They're all written by the same guy. They all start the same way. They all share plot elements, but they're all different, And like that's things like transhumanism, Heaven's Gate, Scientology. It's like, okay, it's the same thing. It's like basically you started with Christianity and you went, what if? Okay.
What if?
Yeah, basically. Like, what if instead of this? Like, what if instead of the king, like, what if instead of we die and go to heaven, and a spaceship is hiding in the tail of a comet, and we just need to drop our bodies and they'll beam us up. Okay.
Yeah, you start seeing how there maybe is like a problem with even like the Petersonian worldview of if it gets brought into a Mormon thing, because there becomes a deal where everybody really does kind of start doing their own Tower of Babel. Like they all kind of say, I'm going to start building my own, I'm going to gather my own Horcruxes and create my own Voldemort down at the end of it. And
that, like, as much as I enjoy and I find value in that kind of Petersonian view of religion and Christianity and all that stuff, I like, it's neat, but like that's not what our moms were thinking about when they were raising us Mormon.
No.
Right? No.
But there is something.
They thought God
Is
told
that what
them.
is that what it's supposed to be though? Like, is that what he claims that it is?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how to exactly
I think
describe it. The way he
Peterson
understands religion is neat and makes sense, but I don't think that's how a typical Christian understands religion.
No, it isn't. But I don't think that he's describing it as something that the typical Christian understands.
go
think,
do this.
I think what he's saying
I
is
guess
that
I'm not really saying he is. I'm just saying like his view doesn't really reflect. It's rare.
Yeah. But
the typical Christian believer does not think at all like he does.
So what I was going to go into, because like I like Peterson, because to me like it rescued a lot of a fun way or a good way to think about the Bible and all that sort of stuff, and I like thinking about it that way or putting it into the ways.
I was lucky because
this is how humans are making sense of
for me before I met Peterson.
And
the Bible Geek made the Bible fun.
Yeah, Peterson made it fun. Now Bible Geek would make it fun, like in historical and understanding stuff. I even thought that what's his name from the Mormons, what's his name?
James Talmage.
Talmage made it fun. I thought that was a good book. I always did.
You know what's funny is like because I read
the Christ.
I read Jesus the Christ twice on my mission, and I read the Book of Mormon once. My dad hates Talmage, and I've heard a lot of people say they can't stand Talmage. And I mean, it's been since my mission, and I only read Jesus the Christ and other whatever smatterings of talks that I read. But I remember always loving Talmage. But
Talmage would have been one of those guys that's almost like what Jordan Peterson is talking about with Christians, because like I know that with him there was a big argument between him and I'm pretty sure Joseph F. Smith over the existence of what he called pre-Adamites. Because he was like, I'm pretty sure this evolution thing happened. So like there had to have been people before Adam, and maybe they just didn't have a soul or something. But Joseph F. Smith was like, this is blasphemous or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a real sticking point.
The reason I liked him is because like when he would explain Christians or Christ stuff or stuff in the Bible, he would do extra explaining of context around just Jerusalem of the time, which I think is always helpful. Anybody does that, and it's always interesting, and it's always helpful, and it gives more to the story. But Peterson kind of does more stuff of like, this is why these types of general stories might be interesting to these are why these stories stick around. They stick around because they are interesting to our psychology, our psychology.
Yeah, so I don't think he's claiming that our moms understood why they were.
No, but people take it and run with it. So I'm not saying it's Peterson's fault, because I think Peterson does a good job of always saying like, how about it's this? How about it speaks to you because of this? How about it's giving you like these ideas of how to think about a scenario because it's giving you these concepts of like the two brother archetype or that sort of stuff. Like I think Peterson was always really good at kind of giving it like, how about this? Maybe it means this. Maybe it speaks to you because of this. And he's pretty good at doing that. How about? But a lot of people just like took it and ran with it and kind of started going like, well, I'm going to say it says this. I'm going to say it says this. I'm going to say, and then everybody just kind of starts creating their own thing out of it. And then, especially if you get in the Latter-day Lobster group, you get people who start like going and pulling, and I think they have a lot of fun doing it. Like, no knocking on that. But what starts to happen is like one of the things that I frequently talk about is this concept of the society that's around a singular vision. Like Vervaeke will talk about, everybody's kind of stuck on the singular thing, and there is some sort of necessity or idea that the way the church tried to have everything very, very generalized, so everybody was kind of focusing and directing on the same thing, is part of how the society grows strong that way. And if it does kind of just become this thing like everybody's kind of creating their own a la carte world in there, you don't really have that gelling thing that I've always been talking about, like that Durkheimian gelling going on. It's like it's deconstructing, just even though they're salvaging religion, it's deconstructing, it's atomizing just as much as if they were losing faith. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just had the realization that, like, you know, the whole Jungian, Petersonian, the way they talk about the Bible and religion and all this stuff, Mr. Plinkett put it in that one little sentence of, you might not have noticed it, but your brain did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like like Peterson has stretched that out into 9,000 hours.
Yeah, well,
like, that's what he's saying, is that you might not have noticed it, but the part that your evolutionary part of your brain that speaks this language on a level that is so deeper than conscious. That's
but part of what Peterson talks about is that, and fairy tales, they actually got formed that way. They got formed that way because they were stories told again and again and again and again, and distilled down again and again and again and again, and told again and again and again across generations again and again. And then what's kept and what's passed on, what's kept, what's passed on, and it gets distilled down into just the thing that sticks to the brain.
It's Richard Dawkins' memes.
It's exactly what it is.
Memology.
And that's what
Absolutely.
Peterson was always trying to tell him from the start. He says, you just didn't go far enough. Even Weinstein tried to tell him, you didn't go far enough. You were right about memes.
Up there.
You were right about memes, Richard. Why don't you just go all the way with it and see that that's what? Why do you have to be mad and call this parasite? It wasn't parasite. It was evolution, And but mental evolution or ideas evolution. And let me see here. I can't find that clip because I was trying to do the Jared's TikTok here and put it next to the other thing, but I can't find where it was in my editing. Hold on. Because here's Jared's. What archetype is this? Going back to Fusion calls it. That's what he said. What archetype is this? I like it. I like his face. It starts on though.
Yeah, he looks pretty.
That I'm a straight white male. And I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male. And I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male. And
So in the intro, it's got to be that, and then cut straight to that thing as well. And that's what being a progressive Mormon's all about. And then
straight white male.
And then we'll cut to some Sam Hyde yelling and all that sorts of stuff. And did you guys watch the beginning part of that episode?
Dehlin, I'm gonna come to your house and commit a crime.
All right.
We about hitting it. And then of course they turn on me when the yeah, you didn't see that?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Brad challenged you.
Wait, I don't know if I saw the actual clip.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I just heard about it. I haven't seen the actual clip.
Gonna happen. I think
I am not backing
this guy
out
strikes
no
me as
matter
somebody
what.
who puts his money where his mouth is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I know who I could fight.
Who?
Chris Hanna. One of us has to lose our fight, guys, and I will take that. He'll just take me down immediately. It'll just be over.
I don't know. But also, I gotta he's not anti-Mormon. You got to
I
box
know,
anti-Mormon.
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm too high on the list, man.
Yeah, you believe in Mormonism too much.
Yeah. Brad Whitbeck, I'm coming to your house. But I always felt that. It's funny
really sad, and it's really sad, but it's true because I agree with you because I'm exactly where you are. I'm an ex-Mormon, but I believe that Mormonism is a net positive to society.
Yeah.
And look where that puts us in relation to the ex-Mormon communities.
Well, there is something that I do have to admit because I lied a bit earlier. I was defending myself saying that I'm pro-immigrant and all that stuff, but I have had one major issue with Canadians going way back, man. Those snow beaners. I hate it when they cross the border, and I hate it when they come to our towns, and I hate it when they come and take jobs that could have been a perfectly good Utahns jobs. Yeah. These Canadians are coming and they're taking our jobs.
The thing is, Randy, you've been replaced.
What?
We found an immigrant from the future who knows geology, and he offered to work for next to nothing. This is Mr.
Oh my God.
They took my job.
I won't stand for Brad Whitbeck.
With their Molson's lager.
If you want to fight, I'll fight you, Canadian.
Fuck them all to death.
Have you guys considered because
what is that?
A lot of reasons why it's wonderful to be American, and because the British Commonwealth is still the largest sovereignty in the world, and Queen Elizabeth was the monarch for 70 years or whatever. And so Queen Elizabeth appears on more money than Queen Elizabeth is on the money of Fiji. Queen Elizabeth is in Canada's money. Queen Elizabeth is on Barbados's money, but she's dead now. So in all of the Commonwealth, starting soon, every time you want to buy something, you're going to open up your wallet and you're going to see that fucking Prince Charles's ugly mug.
Are they going to bother to do that?
They have to. It's tradition. No, and here's the other thing. There's
a huge movement to remove all physical forms of money in the world now. Maybe they'll take that as an opportunity to do that.
There's even a tradition where every monarch on the coins, as each monarch changes, they alternate what direction they face on the coin. Oh. So all Queen Elizabeth coins, I don't remember which way, but all the Queen Elizabeth coins are facing one way. and then all the King Charles coins are going to go the other way. So
Yeah.
weird that they still have a monarchy. I can't believe that. It's so weird.
I know.
We're gonna go back to it, man. That's what
The
we're
current
I
year.
guess so. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. But it's just such a doofy dude. Like Queen Elizabeth was at least a classy lady, you know. But like, you know, Prince Charles had affairs, and he's a dope, and everybody thinks he's a dope. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that really was the true end of the era, the true end of.
Yeah, you kind of have to think. I don't know, because that's the thing is like, I mean, I'm not even. I don't really care about this, but just thinking about it, like after Prince Charles, he's got the one kid who is like, "Fuck all this, I'm out," and you guys are racist. Jesus, that whole Meghan Markle thing, like, yeah, all that crap. And the other one just seems to be quietly doing his job, and maybe
No, there's
like,
a bunch of cheating scandals on him too.
Oh, all right, they're all fucked.
Yeah. So what you gonna do? And you
Adopt
want to know what they say?
American Constitution.
You want to know why they say he cheats on his wife with that other girl? Because she won't pay him. That's the honest story that goes floating around. The
What
other
a
lady
bitch!
will. The other lady will pay
absolute
him.
bitch.
The
What
other lady
kind
will
of
pay
woman-
him, and his
what do you-
wife won't pay him. That's at
Prince
least
of
the
Wales
floating-
can't get
Look it up.
pegged?
Look it up. Look it up.
Prince
Yeah.
of
Well,
Wales can't
his
get
proper wife won't pay him, and the some girl who's a childhood friend will indulge in paying him. I'm not making this up.
Imagine that being your deal breaker.
Well, I mean, I could see that being like proper wife. What's her name? I forget.
That horrible,
Catherine?
horrible bitch won't put
The
things
Prince
in
of
my
Wales
asshole.
was dubbed the Prince of Pegging after Dumois ran an anonymous post about a royal.
I told you I wasn't making it up, man.
Rolling Stone, what is pegging? Prince William rumor sparks interest in sex.
I told y'all. Always something.
Oh, what a
There's
world.
always something.
All
Should we
right.
end on pegging?
Yes.
Okay.
right. Yeah.
That's a horcrux. The peg is a horcrux. All right.
Mormonism is my horcrux. We've established that.
All right. We'll get to the trans extra super life. All right.
All right, see you, man.
Later.
I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means.